Can Catholics attend annulment weddings? The answer is no, because to do so is an endorsement of their divorce sin, which they committed to get the annulment in the first place. So in this video, we'll expose where the annulment industrial complex actually admits in writing that they have redefined marriage. There's so much in this, you're going to want to stay tuned. It's amazing what I've uncovered. At any rate, this will help you inform your conscience that these annulment weddings are largely a criminal enterprise that you should avoid. Happy Easter from Annulment Proof. So those guys were fired up. I love it. So let's get into our video. Whoops, sorry about that. I uncovered so much info on this. It's like, wow. I thought I was going to make a short video, but of course this will be another long one. Sorry, guys. Let's start at the beginning, the premise, the reason why these annulment weddings aren't cool, because the vast majority are the result of the divorce, right? Okay. What am I talking about? Romans 3:8. And not rather, let us do evil that there may come good, whose damnation is just. In other words, yeah, you're going to hell if you do evil to do good, so to speak. In other words, you've done this divorce so you can get the annulment, all right? There's crimes against this. It's in canon law, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to explain and make the case why you are participating in the sin of the couple, or one of them at least, if they've gotten the divorce and they have never made public restitution for that. So let me read a few of my little notes here, and then we'll eventually wade into some of the law and give you some of the facts. And again, no one's even asked this question on YouTube or anywhere. Can I attend an out-of-church wedding or whatever? But yeah, how about an annulment wedding? If they're Catholic divorce, which everyone claims they are, people like me and all that, which the tribunals hate, then okay, why can you go to a Catholic divorce? You can't. So what's going on here? Annulment proof, put up or shut up. Just stay calm. I got lots of stuff for you. Lots of video clips, a bunch of things. Okay? I wrote some notes to myself to get us started. Can a Catholic attend an annulment wedding? Well, it depends. If either party is a marital abandoner, then to attend their new wedding is to declare them not an abandoner. You see what I'm saying? Anyone who divorces on their own authority, no matter how good the reason was or whatever, is technically legally an abandoner, publicly an abandoner. So if they're going to go get remarried at this annulment wedding, you're basically saying, no, you have a clean slate, you have the annulment, therefore they took care of the divorce sin, it's no longer there, you're no longer an abandoner. This is why I have that video, which I'll link to later, how annulment seals your fate, okay? So let's keep going. This is because abandonment requires public restitution for absolution. That's important. That's right. The abandonment requires public restitution. You've got to go either move back home because you divorced, you abandoned, or you have to get the bishop, the local ordinary, to declare it legal for you to separate. This is public restitution. But if you get the new marriage, there ain't no public to go back to. It's kind of like trying to make something right after you've already committed suicide. It's a little late at that point. You can't go back. See what I mean? So this gets tricky. This gets tough. We don't want to encourage people to go scorched earth and just, trash their family and all that, leave it behind and go get the shiny new model. And that's all that's going on here. It's just it's divorce and remarriage by another name. Everyone knows it, but people won't admit it. They have fancy language. We're going to uncover some of this fancy language and show how they can't admit it. When you get right down to the canon law and the commentary on it, they have to admit, yeah, we're redefining things. That's the only way. So if there is an annulment wedding, the public restitution is impossible because they are bound to their new contract publicly. Pretty hard to go back and fix what you can't access. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, so when, I don't know, different different armies show up to conquer somebody. They go in their ships and they show up to a new land and they go, we're going to conquer you guys. What does the captain do? He burns the ships. Ain't going home, y'all. We're going to take care of stuff. It's it. Okay. So when you get your annulment wedding, we're not going back to fix what's still broken. Can't. It's really hard to swim back. It's possible, but very hard. So they cannot go back and access restitution from their previous public marriage contract. It is difficult to separate from a new spouse. Yep. Get an annulment reversed and then go get the new marriage annulled so you can eventually obtain the public restitution via bishop's decree. Then your annulment excuse can't be reused. Yeah, that's right. So there's so much running against you when you go get this. In other words, you are so throwing away the key when you get your, quote, new marriage, all right? So I don't want you guys to glaze over. I don't want you to run away. Stick with me. There's a lot to learn in this video, and I'm going to have the transcript here. I'm also going to say that every annulment case is a little different. There's many similarities, but generally what I'm talking about is people who got the divorce, now they're getting the remarriage, okay, via the annulment. That's primarily what we're focused on. If you got some different kind of cases or you want to put them in the comments, we'll talk about every single one of them, no problem. I'm different than everyone on YouTube because I answer all the questions and I'll go round and round as much as you need in the comments. Because when you got the truth, you'll say it, okay? Let's keep going. Let's see, bottom line, if there is abandonment, your presence at the wedding says they are free to contract this new union because the prior marriage has been legally resolved. Yeah, you kind of are. Well, they got an annulment, so I guess it's cool, right? That's what everybody says. Divorce is only, it's not divorce that's the sin, it's just remarriage without the annulment. Everybody says that. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Divorce is a sin in and of itself, and you can't, it's like saying, hey, guess what? I've got tons of money and all this stuff, and I'm going to give it to you guys. I had to kill somebody to get all his money, but, hey, it's cool now, right? No, you can't do that. Wait till I show you some of this canon law stuff. Just wait, you guys. When it hasn't, let's see. Bottom line, there is abandonment, your presence at the wedding. They are free to contract this new union. Okay. When it hasn't because the marriage, the marriage is not just a sign, it's also nature. That's right. This is why they say, well, it wasn't sacramental. The sacrament, the sign of salvation, Christ and his church. It wasn't a sacrament, dude. Well, you have to have nature in there as well, the contract. I'm getting there. So I wrote in here also, if the children, this is interesting, I think. So people say, what about the children? What about this legitimacy stuff? Because people say, oh yeah, hey, get the annulment, but your kids are still legitimate. And it's like, that doesn't make sense because if the marriage wasn't legitimate, how can the kids be legitimate? It's because you had a putative marriage. Okay. So you went through the motions. It's effort toward legitimacy. So the kids are legitimate, but you might say, if the kids remain legitimate after the annulment, then so does the sin of divorce maintain its legitimacy. So if the kids don't get erased by the annulment, neither does the sin of divorce get erased by the annulment, because you offended nature when you did the divorce, and that didn't go away, okay? So if the nature has not been legally resolved, one is not free to move on. The nature is the contract, common life, education, property, that has been abandoned or extorted. That's an important word too. So you're an extortioner if you did this divorce, all right? And that extortion doesn't go away. You have to fix it. You can't just, again, kill the rich guy and keep all his stuff and say, well, it's no longer his because he's dead. Just like people used to kill their spouse to move on. You can't do that, and that's in canon law too. It's an impediment. For the reasons we just said, you cannot benefit from a crime, okay? That's all that's going on with these annulment marriages. You're benefiting from a crime. Largely the people who get the divorce, that's what goes on a lot. There's tons of that. But there's other scenarios. I understand. This is why it's tricky, because it's not always every situation is the same. No. There can be other scenarios where there was no sin committed in the divorce or whatever. You're the innocent victim. However, you could argue that still, every marriage is for life. Just the annulments are all fake anyway. Pretty much, they're fake and gay because they're based on feelings. They're based on my personal, the way I felt wasn't good. Therefore, someone wasn't capable of making me feel good. Good to the spouses. All right. One attends. Okay, here. One attends a nature of those who are freed. One attends a nature. I don't quite understand what I'm saying. Oh, annulment is only half of the question. Nature is the other. Half of the question. Marriage is sacrament, but it's also the contract. So we have to take care of the nature. Speaking of taking care of things, it's getting late. I got to go get some tires right now. It's 10:49 p.m., but I'll come back tomorrow. We'll finish this video. Hang on. Okay, welcome to tomorrow. Let's pick up where we left off. I've got, like I said, a lot of little videos we got to play. So we're going to be jumping all over the place. I'm telling you, there's some cool info I've got for you. And I also have a new insight about when Mary said, or when it was said to Mary, your heart shall be pierced with a sword so that the thoughts of many hearts maybe will be laid bare. I came to a new realization about that on Holy Saturday. I'm going to talk about that toward the end. Okay. The CCC. What could be wrong with the CCC? In this case, they have to admit it. That's a lot of stuff. A lot of what goes on with this canon law. If you kind of get right down to it, they've got to admit what's going on, which they do in the commentary of canon law. That's the Bible of canon law. Let me show you a picture of it real quick. Okay, this this green book right here, the new commentary of the Code of Canon Law. This is on the desk of every canon lawyer in the USA. Everybody researches it and references it. It's the commentary on what the new canons, what canon law means. When they say, the canon 11 something says X. Well, let's get the explanation. So all these guys, Father John Beale, Father James Corden. I don't know if Thomas Green is a priest. I know some of them are dead, and there's more people in there. But all these guys are annulment guys. However, like I said, they have to sort of admit what's going on. So when I reference this book, you'll know it's like this is the, quote, Bible of canon law right here. And everybody has it. And I'm going to give page numbers. But let's go back to the catechism where it says what's actually going on, because you cannot get around it. Okay? I've said this before in other videos, but we've got to go through this right now to explain about the attending the annulments, the annulment weddings. All right, what does divorce do? It's a grave offense against nature. Grave offense against nature. Not just against the sign. Okay, so divorce. Okay, there's that. Okay, it claims to break the contract. Yes, so when you got your divorce and you filed for divorce, you said, me, Jane, or me, Joe, or whoever, I'm claiming to break the contract. Hey, remember that contract that I consented to? Remember that one? Hey, I'm taking it back. Right here, me, I'm taking it back. Call me a narcissist if you want, fine, because I am entitled to take back the contract. It is exactly what I'm going to do, and that is a crime, okay? It's an injustice, all right? Claim to break the contract to which the spouses freely consented to live with each other till death. That's it. There's the contract right there. And what do you do when you live together? You make babies. That's what you do. And you have that right. There you go. I had some other cool stuff about that for another video. Some secular video came up and talked about marital debt. And they're like, they're right. Not to digress. Keep moving. Okay, so here's the second part. Remember I said earlier that annulment is only half of the question, nature is the other? Look, divorce also, they don't say also, but I am. Divorce also does injury to the covenant of salvation, because they like to use that word covenant. Basically what they're saying is Christ and his church. So if you separate Christ and his church, you are doing injury to the covenant of salvation. You are saying the covenant of salvation is Christ is the new covenant. That's the new Jerusalem, the new church. When you divorce, you are saying, no, it's not. So it's a scandal that offends nature. When you do the abortion, you are saying, you're not only killing the baby, that's offending nature, but it's also a scandal of saying, I'm laying claim to the right over this person. I have claim to destroy the life of that person. That's also a scandal, among other things. Man, that's all it is. You're doing a family abortion. You are doing a family abortion. I don't know. I couldn't think of an analogy. Like you'd say you people can, some ladies I think get abortions so they can do their career, and it's like, no. You've committed a sin so that you can do this quote good thing or whatever. Now then. Then contracting a new union, even if recognized by civil law, adds to the gravity of the rupture. Now, listen here. Contracting a new union, a new contract, okay? You could say, even if recognized by ecclesiastical law, not only civil law, but your new union adds to the gravity of the rupture. The rupture. You don't rupture the covenant of salvation necessarily. I guess you could, but you rupture the offense against natural law. So that gravity, you've still ruptured natural law. And the remarried purpose is then in a situation of public and permanent adultery. Yeah, that's right. Now, even if they get remarried, they're in a situation of public and permanent adultery. I don't know how to put this. They're in a situation of private and permanent. Wait, let's back up a second. This is why it's tricky. This is why everyone just goes to the wedding. You have, once you get a new wedding, a new union, okay, you've added gravity to the rupture. You've offended natural law, but now you've started a new natural law. So it's adding insult to injury. It's making it worse. You're not solving it. You're just taking you're burying your own kids alive, and they're still alive down there, but you're not rescuing them. Instead of getting them out of the pit, which you need to do, you put dirt in there. You put a cage on top. You put you block them in there. That's what you're doing. And you're saying, no, so you're sealing the problem off rather than dealing with it. And nature does not care about ecclesiastical or civil law. Nature operates independent of that. Those kids need the mom and dad. That's nature. And you also, how should I put this? It's tricky because if you take away that bond, if you take away if the marriage doesn't exist, then I guess you don't have any more rights. But there's still the nature there. You never took care of it right in the first place. It's kind of like the gross analogy is, you killed your spouse to get the annulment. That you killed your family to get the annulment. We're getting there. Bear with me. I'm working this out as we go. But the nice part about it is when I say stuff, I mean it. And if I'm not sure, I will back it up or research it or whatever we got to do in the comment section rather than just like, no, I'm saying this. And if you don't understand it, then that's your problem. No, we're going to talk all about it because truth needs to be arrived at. So let's see what else we got. Oh, while I'm thinking of it, let's just watch a video really quick. Just a minute. Okay, so this basically super clean shaven kid here, he's a quote Christian. So this guy's like a conservative Protestant, American style, something or other. But you know something? A lot of these Protestants do stumble upon truth because they read the Bible. They don't say, no, we know what the Bible really means now. No, they kind of say what the Bible really says in a John the Baptist kind of way. And it upsets certain Catholic status quo because that's why it's Catholic divorce. Like I say, if it's Catholic divorce, we got to act like it. But I was listening to this the other day. I'm like, whoa, we're going to put this in the video. So hold on a second.
Because his answer is one that a lot of Christians struggle with. In this clip, someone asks Frank about his brother who committed adultery, divorced his wife, and now wants to marry a woman that he had the affair with. The man refused to attend the wedding, and now he's asking Frank, am I being too harsh? And here's what Frank said.
So my question is, my brother committed adultery against his wife, and they got a divorce.
Yeah.
And then my brother then wanted sometime later to marry the person that he committed adultery with. And he wanted me to come to his wedding, and I told him that I would not come to his wedding.
Good for you.
But that I would serve food or I would do something other than attend the ceremony. And this has caused a lot of heartache and disruption in our family. I love my brother dearly, but am I being too legalistic or unloving, or am I on the right path?
Love doesn't mean you agree with what sin people want to do.
That's a crude way of putting it, but yeah, it's a backside of way of putting it, but okay.
Love doesn't mean that you agree
With sin is what wants to do. Fine,
somebody
great.
needs to do. That's
Hang on,
there is
gets
really-
better. Hold on,
because
guys.
A lot of Christians say something like this: I don't agree with the relationship, but I'll go to support the person.
Yeah, that's people will say that too. And it's okay. Yeah, it's not cool because love means willing the good of the other. And what's even my own mother-in-law. So example, like my wife's going to try to get married to some dude at the end of May here, which is like a month and a half from now. And even I told my mother-in-law, I'm like, this new wedding of Moira's is in no one's best interest. And she agreed. It's like not good to support it or to go. No, it's not good for that reason alone. But also, like I said, I think it's scandal because you are basically endorsing their sin of divorce. That is what you're doing because you're saying, rather than going back and take care of the nature which you destroyed, rebuild it, put it back, or get permission to leave it from the bishop. Instead, you claim right for yourself, and then you just, quote, move on, right? Isn't that happier? Hey, if all we got is love and no justice, then who are we to judge, okay? This is why I'm making this video, to try to educate people also on the fact that marriage is not merely a love thing. It's a nature thing. It's a justice thing. I'm digressing. Sorry, let's go.
Or another phrase you might hear all the time: support the person, not the lifestyle. But the real question we have to ask is this: what does attending a wedding actually communicate?
Good question.
A wedding is not just a casual social event. It is a celebration of a relationship. You're not just...
It's a celebration of a relationship, and it's an endorsement of it. You're saying, this is a good thing. I like this thing. I think this is good. And I think it's God's will, right? Okay. And it's not God's will because this whole God hates divorce thing is Protestant. It's you hate your spouse. You cannot take this divorce to heaven with you. But if you do the annulment and then the remarriage, you're basically shutting off access to repairing your divorce. So that's why I have the picture of that video, and I'll send you that link, how annulment seals your fate.
showing up for food. You are publicly celebrating and affirming the union. And Frank goes on to say something in this clip that a lot of people don't think about.
Now, this is a hard teaching in the scriptures, don't get me wrong. You know, a person that commits adultery is not supposed to get married again if they're a Christian.
That's true. That's true. Because marriage is till death. So if you sin or whatever, you stay single or you reconcile. That's what the Bible says. That's right. Like these Protestants, they do what the Bible says. We reinvented that in 65. So all that's gone now. It's all this invalidity stuff. It's a whole other video, which I am going to make about Joe Heschmeyer and Matthew 19:9. We're getting there. I've already researched it. Bear with me. All right, let's keep going.
That's what the scriptures say. It's a hard teaching, but God has his reasons for it. Your duty is to obey God, not what your brother wants. You don't love people by doing whatever they want to do. Love does not mean approval. By the way, the same thing is true with same-sex weddings. You know what you're supposed to do at a wedding? You're not just a witness. When you're at a wedding, you're saying that you are going to actively try and keep the couple together through things.
Great point. When you're at a wedding, yes, this is your support. You're supposed to actively keep them together. The Catechism says the same thing. This is why you do it in public. You need help to quote, stay together and you're supposed to reconcile them and all that. So rather than, if you go to this, so like I said, my wife's going to get married to this guy. Apparently, he's got kids. You know, she's got kids. It's completely stupid. Okay. But what a Catholic should do is say, look, let's conform to nature here. So this guy, Byron, you go back to your wife and kids, and Moira, you go back to your husband and kids. All right. That's God's will. That's what that is. But instead, you do this new wedding. Now you're saying, no. We've come up with a new cross for you, new God's will, and we're supporting this new gig. It's a problem.
thin. How can you do that at a same-sex wedding according to the scriptures?
You can't.
You are going to actively try and keep this union together. That is historically what weddings are. Witnesses are not just observers for this. They are people that are affirming and supporting the marriage.
Brutal.
So
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So there's another reason with these annulment weddings, you really got to decide. You really got to research it. With each case, you got to find out how did they get here, who divorced who, what's going on. You got to kind of figure it out because a lot of these, almost all of them now, are just they're annulments. They're fake annulments, which were created when you made love part of the contract. Therefore, anyone can get the annulment. So what you do is, and I made this point in my last video, annulment people aren't good spouses because they've already said, I can't do for better or for worse. When worse happens, I'm out. So it's kind of inevitable. My little sister married an annulment guy. Didn't last. Blew out. It turns out nobody knew this at the time. I mean, I didn't know anything about this like years ago when the wedding happened, but yeah, he had already gotten the annulment from before. He got married to some nice Catholic girl, or I don't know how nice she was, but when they were like 19 or 20, kid or two, boom, annulment, meets my sister, 20 years later, right? Stuff like that. So even though it's quote tough love, egging on these annulment things isn't really cool. Anyone who's living a lie is resistant to truth, and when they're invested in the lie, they're extremely resistant to it. So this is why I keep saying these annulments seal your fate. Very difficult to dig your way out. The gravitational pull, the winds that blow against you, your reconciling with God after a crime-ridden annulment is very difficult to overcome.
the real question is not simply, do I love this person? The real question is, can I celebrate something that God calls sin? And
great question. No, you can't. Now, this is where I have to try to educate people. Some of you who don't maybe know, the divorce was a sin. If you filed for divorce, if you claimed the right over the contract, you're the filer. You're the one who, whatever I said it was, 2384, we're the one who did grave offense against nature. You can't just wish that away, or if you get rid of the annulments. Like if you, I can't think of an analogy necessarily. If you, I can't think of a good analogy right now, but you cannot go back. You cannot offend nature and then get on a piece of paper say, I never offended nature. You have to make restitution, public restitution. And I don't know, if one of the spouse dies, then I guess that takes care of that, but that doesn't happen real often.
this is where we need to be honest as followers of Jesus. Because many believers say they would never attend a same-sex wedding, but they'll gladly attend a wedding where someone left their former spouse through adultery. So
a lot of these annulments are just like that. They leave through adultery, okay? Because you got a narcissist who wants supply. That narcissist cannot be alone. So they do adultery, they leave, they got the new supply all set up. Wham, wham, wham. Boom, they divorce. Then they get married to the new person, or whatever new person happened to be around, or later, or whatever. That's all that's going on here, which is why they call it Catholic divorce. I put something on Facebook just today that Catholic divorce didn't start until separation courts stopped. Because once you take justice out of the picture, you now create a non-justice based contract, which means love is the basis of marriage, which means that cannot be judged. So when there's no love, there's no marriage. So all you have to say is, hey, no love over here. Fine. Walk out of your marriage. There's no nature violated, okay, because there's no judgment. It's you to judge. So you laid claim over your marriage contract. No problem, because it's subjective and it's up to you to define what you mean by love and what's loving to you. And obviously, your spouse was incapable of love, or otherwise you wouldn't have, quote, left. So here's your annulment, and welcome to your new wedding. Let's start picking out wedding dresses and this and that.
So why do we have a difference there? And Jesus spoke directly to this. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. And
Bam, right there. That verse, and I'm going to do a whole video about this. I will. It's got to happen. Matthew 19:9. That was totally redefined in 1965 by Catholic Inc. Before that, everyone always said exactly this, except for sexual immorality, aka adultery, whatever. However you want to put it, it doesn't matter. If you cannot whoever divorces his wife, no, it's put away. You cannot separate. Whoever separates from their wife except for adultery and marries another commits adultery. That's all this says. Whoever separates. So there is no divorce until your heart stops beating. The marriage lasts until your heart stops. But you can separate. There's no separating either because it's nature, okay? Except for if someone does adultery or things that fall under the heading of adultery, like apostasy, or they like to throw gas on you when you're sleeping and throw a cigarette on you, that kind of stuff. You can separate for those reasons because that's violating marriage, okay? That's except for fornication. That falls under fornication, right? So it doesn't really matter what translation you use and everything. It all means the same thing. But as I always say, the only interpretation of the Bible is the unchanging one. That's the only correct one. This has always been interpreted as you can separate for adultery, but that's it. Now, Protestants get goofed up on it because they have no separation courts, because they have no bishops, because Martin Luther fired all the bishops. So they have to put the word divorce in there instead. And now this is why they call it a covenant with the state, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Let's keep going.
this isn't just my opinion. These are the words of Jesus. So if we say that same-sex weddings celebrate something sinful, but we're willing to celebrate a marriage that was birthed out of adultery, nothing about that is consistent with Scripture. And Frank actually addresses this same point.
You want them to stay in sin? You want them to jeopardize their eternity?
But we're told in Catholic remarriage with an annulment, no, it's totally fine. It's not sin. It's not a problem. Wait a minute. How did they get here? How did they get this annulment started? Through divorce. They also, even if it's just one person who did the divorce of this new wedding, everyone needs to get rid of that so that even the quote innocent spouse shouldn't play along, shouldn't join in with this. Everyone needs to get right with God, not just redefine God to make their situation right. So to attend, like I said, for my own wife's wedding coming up, to attend that is to help, it's the same way all along, to confirm them in their sin. Giving someone communion for divorce affirms them in their sin. Going to their wedding, when there's an annulment, affirms them in their sin because they never took care of their annulment or their divorce in the first place. And also the annulment's fake, which that's a whole nother topic as to, it's because they use a love-based contract, which is not nature. I've done videos on that before. But even if you don't want to go there, even if you think the annulment is perfectly valid, they still have to clean up their divorce through a public restitution. If you don't get restitution, you cannot get absolution. If you can't get absolution, you can't die in a state of grace, and you go to a lake of fire once you stop breathing. So get it straight. This isn't messing around. Divorce is a grave sin, and it's manifest. All right.
And you're going to help them do that? And by the way, what you're bringing up, most Christians won't. They'll go to that wedding, but they won't go to the same-sex wedding. They should go to neither.
And some of you might find this to be extremely challenging, but the point he's trying to make is about consistency. Now, the reason that this is so difficult is not because Christians necessarily want to celebrate sin. The real fear sounds something more like this. If I don't go, I will lose the relationship. Your brother might feel rejected. Your daughter might feel hurt. Your friend might accuse you of being judgmental. And honestly, as humans, that can hurt us. That can cause us pain.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. Yeah, people weigh that stuff all the time. Cool. It doesn't matter. It doesn't pale to what's really going on. Also, I make the point that if you're trying to, quote, preserve the relationship or whatever, if you cave on Catholicism, you are admitting to them that Catholicism is just a man-made religion. So you're basically selling out to keep the peace or the relationship. So you're saying Jesus isn't really real. It's just a nice feeling. Bad plan. You're not helping them stay Catholic. You're helping them to confirm that this is just religion is just your nicey nice thing. And if I feel like getting nicey nice someday, I might do it too. But at the moment, I don't because it conflicts with my lifestyle or whatever. So let's go to the next part. I think it's 7:15, right about here. Close enough. Let's see what we got.
The difference between a Christian and a non-believer is just that. It's the fact that they have acknowledged that they are sinful and that they need a redeemed
humility. That's right. You have to admit
themselves. Every single one of us.
So it's hard to be a good Christian when you don't admit you're a sinner. AKA when you divorce somebody and you don't admit it, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. So to, again, affirm them in this, you are participating in their sin too.
Has sin in our past. But there's a big difference between loving the sinner and celebrating sin. Christ constantly did the first, but he never did the second. And here's a verse that I think most Christians completely overlook. At the very end of chapter 1, Paul lists an extensive list of sins. But then at the end, he says something striking. Romans 1:32 says, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but, here's the key line, they give approval to those who practice them. That right there, that should make us pause because...
it definitely should. Look, you know what's right, but you're going to give approval to people who are doing the wrong things. When you go to the annulment wedding, if it's something where somebody got that annulment via the divorce and they never took care of their marriage obligations, because marriage is a contract of rights and duties regarding nature. And if that never got squared away the state does not square away your marriage. No. It belongs to the bishop. It belongs to the ecclesiastical judge. And unless you get that handled, you got to deal. You can't, quote, move on. But that's what everyone does because it's just a love thing now. So there's nothing nothing to judge. It has nothing to do with justice. Therefore, whatever nature is involved, we can just violate that nature. And that's exactly what they do. And that's because NFP was, the Pope said NFP is now nature. So NFP is up for your discernment. Nature is up to your discernment. That's what it all comes down to.
A wedding is not neutral. It is a public celebration. And that is exactly why this question about attending sinful or same-sex or adulterous weddings is so difficult. It's difficult for Christians who do want to take the Bible seriously. But here's something worth remembering. Throughout history, when God warns us not to do something, people always initially think the rule is too strict. Maybe they think it's too outdated.
I think he's probably right about that. They'd be like, are you kidding me? Jesus is saying to do this? We're like, no, dude, no. It's not like that. Don't be a Pharisee. Stop being a fundamentalist Protestant. Don't read it's not even a literal Bible, literalist Bible, okay? You can be literal, but you can't be literalist, whatever that means. Protestant, sorry. When Jesus comes back, will he find any faith on earth? All right, you can't be a modernist, but we're all modernists today, so this sort of stuff seems really crazy. This is why these Protestants get stuff right that we don't, because they say what the Bible says, man. Okay, except for other places where they totally blow off the Bible, but whatever.
Too harsh, but eventually we see something. God wasn't trying to restrict us. He was trying to protect us. His design for marriage exists for a reason. And whenever humanity ignores that design, the consequences eventually show up.
They're going to get you at death or before. That's when they're going to get you. So why mess with it? Why not anticipate? It's like, if you know you're driving a car at 100 miles an hour and it's just a matter of time before you're going to hit a brick wall, anticipate, use your head, and figure something else out. But I really want to keep driving. So too bad. And I've been told I won't hit the brick wall. You have to confirm for sure. So this is why we can't mess around with this stuff. Marriage is for life. And God said, it was a huge deal. They were going to crucify him over this, okay? It's not something to toy with or play with. You can't, even though your bishop is like, hey, I don't really care about your divorce. It's fine. He's wrong, and you can't do that. You've got to learn for yourself what's going on in reality, rather than just go, well, my priest and my bishop says the divorce doesn't matter. They're wrong. You've got to turn back the clock to when people were normal, like Catholics were normal. As I say, before like 1950, when all the crazy stuff started to happen after that. Just look at the documents. I got plenty for it. I can prove everything I'm saying. I'll back it up. You want receipts? You want quotes? You want saint quotes? You want documents? You want canon law? You want case law? You want me to show you examples of the way things were, the flow chart, the process, the separation courts? Oh, shoot. Someone's trying to call me. Just a minute. Let me push pause. Let's keep going. I think we're almost done with this guy.
Situations are painful. They do require wisdom, humility, and a lot of compassion. But they also require something that a lot of modern Christians struggle with, and that's courage.
Courage, yes, and also faith to do the right thing and to be confirmed in what is correct. And that means you've got to follow your conscience. You can't just go, well, this seems right to me. You have to look at church, what the church teaches, instead of just going with what everyone says. And also doing a little digging, because you ask AI and stuff, they'll spit out the modernist stuff. You have to kind of look at the unchanging faith, not the updated version.
The courage to obey God, even when it costs us something.
Right.
And interesting.
I don't even think it would cost you. It's easier to not go to the wedding. And you probably, almost all these, there may be circumstances, and I'm sure I'll hear some in the comments where it was kind of like an okay idea or whatever. But typically, typically, no, they're fake and gay, and the people get messed up because they're just running from their original vows. That's all that's going on. That's why they call it Catholic divorce, because that's what it is. You've just taken the contract and you've made it into mush. Therefore, you can't handcuff somebody with a spaghetti noodle. There's nothing there, so it's like whatever, and it's like it's all defined by me, love. So I'm just moving, peace in, peace out. No offense.
Interestingly, when we talk about situations like this, most Christians can immediately see the right answer when it's somebody else's problem. But it becomes much harder when it's our own family, our own relationships, and our own emotions. And that's actually something that psychologists call Solomon's paradox.
Yeah.
I made a video breaking that down as well, about why we can give great advice to other people, but we struggle to follow that same wisdom ourselves. So,
well, I suppose that's where the humility part comes in. Hey, you want a great prayer? Ask God for more humility. Be careful what you ask for. You just might get knocked in between the eyes some way you wouldn't have thought of, and that's how God does it. Okay, let's keep going with our notes, and then we'll get into another video in a minute. But that was one of the main videos, I guess. Let's share this tab instead. check this out. Somebody sent me this, one of my buddies from Matt Walsh. It was really good. He just did this today. We let communists, psychiatrists, and academics, but I repeat myself, take over the justice system. Really? The justice system? Oh, we're pursuing justice, are we? Okay, I'll remember that word. So the commies, the psychiatrists, and the academics who are super smart, they have longer beards than me, and they're like, they know everything. Take over the justice system, the communists. People who have no understanding of human nature. Oh, yes, or perhaps too much understanding because we know so much more now, right? Right? This is why someone, I forgot who it was said, I think it was the guy who used to do firing line or whatever. He said, I would just take a random page of the phone book and let those people govern rather than who's governing now, we'd be better off. Oh, whatever that guy's name was. I'll think of it in a minute. You probably know who I'm talking about. Anyway, godless pervert heathens. That. Continue. So godless pervert heathens who reject natural law and the very concept of justice. Okay, well, that's not ironclad, but that's pretty close. What we have in the annulment tribunals right now, could we call them godless pervert heathens? Well, you could make that point because they pervert the conjugal act, and they say, instead of procreation primary, we're going to turn it upside down. We're going to have love primary, life-giving love and all that fun stuff. Right? Godless. So when you start doing that, you become godless. And then also heathens, they become worshipers of the conjugal act. That's all theology of the body is. Let's say why don't you write a huge long book called Theology of the Pizza, and you get extremely into your pizza experience. And you start worshiping pizza. You're trying to get the pizza out of the Trinity and the way it feels when you eat it. Oh, it's crazy stuff, man. It's like pizza worship. It's like conjugal act worship, the new paganism, who reject natural law and the very concept of justice. Once you start making what's natural into what's supernatural, you can bypass justice because you're like, no, it's so much more than just, you owe us $10 for your pizza. No, pizza is so much more than that, and therefore we're not going to limit it to just the $10. And that's why I don't need to pay it. And we need to get all these freaks out of the system, reject everything they say on the topic of crime and punishment, and get back to arresting evil people and making them suffer for their crimes. Darn tootin', exactly right. Hello, that's when you see like all the peasants with pitchforks cruising up to the castle to get rid of the werewolf or whoever the heck is up there. You got to have law and order. This defund the cops thing defund the police is ridiculous. Defund, remove the divorce or make divorce good is ridiculous. You just destroy marriage. And we need to make divorcers suffer for their crimes, aka public restitution, rather than. I got something to say about that, man. I'm going to show you something from Third Council of Baltimore. Okay, this is so spot on. This is exactly what's going on in the tribunals. Okay, the stuff they're all saying. This is why I can't get it. I'm desperate to get any canon lawyer to come on Annulment Proof and talk to me. Any canon lawyer, anyone who can set me straight, talk to me. They run the other direction because they don't want to go there because I'm gonna expose them. All right, so this is all good. This is good. He's basically really laying it on thick, and that's good. Someone's got to. If we just kind of, it's really kind of like they shouldn't be doing this quite so much as no, it's bad. These crimes, aborting a family and aborting a baby, there's not a whole lot of difference there. It's really evil stuff, sick stuff. But we're all like, well, divorce is just a giggly thing. It's funny. We have divorce parties. Oh, brother. Now, I believe I have Third Council of Baltimore written in here somewhere. I'm pretty sure I do. Let me just grab it real quick in case I don't, because I want to remember it. I want to get it while I got it. Hang on, in my mind. Okay, I've got it. It's good. It explains about the justice thing. Remember he said all these freaks have nothing to do with justice anymore? That's right. Check this out. This is This is binding church teaching in 2026 USA. Okay, listen up. Third Council of Baltimore, Decree number 126. We command all baptized married persons that they must not go to the civil courts to obtain a separation from bed and board without previously receiving permission from the ecclesiastical authority. Should anyone attempt this, let him know that he incurs the guilt of grave sin and that he is to be punished as the bishop shall decide. See, we need to be get back to arresting evil people and making them suffer for their crimes. Justice, fault-based separation. That's what the Catholic Church is. That's where it all came from. The fault-based separation, the fault-based court is Catholic, has its origin with the Catholic Church. And once you start saying that love is the contract, all justice immediately disappears because there's nothing to adjudicate. So, in my wife's case coming up, she's got to do this, but she never did this. So now she has the guilt of grave sin. And if you go to the wedding, you are saying, honey, you don't need to go and do this. So we're going to affirm you in your guilt of grave sin. Even if you can get one of those annulments, you still have, it doesn't erase what you've done. You have laid claim to your contract, and that's nature. Just like the kids are still, the kids don't become illegitimate with an annulment. Your sin doesn't become illegitimate. It's still there with an annulment. You have to take care of it. And this is why it's so sick. We're also going to get into some of the law about how the church needs to, the canon law says you got to make sure everything is in place first. Oh, that reminds me of something else. I got to show you something. Somebody sent me this just today. They says, Dear Mr. Blah, blah, because you have formally requested, this is a guy whose spouse disappeared on him, right? So he's like, hey, you can't force separation on me because I have rights in justice, okay? This is Catholic teaching. You can't just say, well, I had a grave reason to leave and I get the divorce, and divorce is not a sin, only remarriage without an annulment is. No. That's leaving reality. That is fake news. So he sent a letter in to the tribunal saying, basically, you got to tell my wife to come back or get a decree of separation. We need court. We need justice. If someone steals your car, you got to bring my car back or you got to pay me for it. Those are your two options. See what I'm saying? Okay. It's not like it's just a car. We can't really judge who owns it. No. Because you have formally requested a reconciliation, the following steps will be taken in accordance with our procedural requirements. I'm curious about what those procedural requirements are. If they even have any or whatever, but they're basically admitting some Catholic stuff. This is brand new from a tribunal. Temporary pause. I know what it was. I think the wife was trying to get the annulment, and he's like, wait a minute. Time out. You've got to take care of the divorce first. Remember the natural contract? You're just running away from all that. No. Marriage is for life. It's a contract for rights, the kids, nature, all that good stuff. You can't just blow off that and just go for the annulment. The nullity process will be placed on hold, effective immediately. Whoa. By the way, this is what I tried to do with my annulment. And they're like, nope. You're not the one who, you're not the one who is leaving or whatever. I forgot how they put it, but they would not let me do this. They just would not. They don't. Most tribunals won't even go here. But this is good. I think they're going to figure out a way around it because they cannot admit this. This goes right back to NFP, and we cannot say NFP is good, or we cannot say NFP is unnatural. So we have to say the marriage contract doesn't exist. So now we have, this is neither fish nor fowl. We're saying that the marriage contract is real. We're acting like it is. I think these guys are going to, this tribunal is going to not back this up, but we'll see what happens. Notification to petitioner. We are in the process of notifying your wife that you have filed for this petition. Review of petition. The petitioner will be provided with a formal copy of your petition to reconcile and will be asked to provide a written response to the court. Oh, huh. Okay. So this is what you can do, I guess, if someone's starting the annulment. You can say, whoa. It's like we've taken off before we've gotten ready. You can't do the annulment without taking care of the separation first. And the state has no authority to do that. Only the church does. This is why, as I said, only ecclesiastical judges have the right to judge this separation. That's why you need the bishop's permission. The permission will be provided, reconcile, and will be asked to provide a written response. Once your wife has responded and the judicial vicar has reviewed the filings, we will contact you regarding the next steps as to whether the cause will resume or remain suspended. Wow. Anyway, that's huge right there. I'm just saying that these guys are actually saying some kind of Catholic stuff. They're going, look, maybe there's some justice involved in this contract. I think this is all window dressing. We shall see. We shall see. Because the bottom line is, if the wife says, hey, I'm not doing this. You're telling me I have to reconcile with my fat slob husband. I'm not doing that. Even though I promised for better or for worse, there's no love there and I'm not doing that. Then what are they going to say? Okay, I guess that's how you feel. What are we going to do? No, it's called denial of sacraments. So you go to hell if you don't reconcile. Are they going to do that? No, they need to. I don't see how they're going to be like, oh, it does not compute. So this is all kind of like fake. I think we'll see. Now there's just that. I got to ask this guy another question, but let's keep going here. And we'll watch another video in here in a minute. Canon 1066. What does this say? Before a marriage takes place, it must be established that nothing stands in the way of its valid and lawful celebration. Okay, kids? So this marriage coming up, or you may know of a marriage where someone got the annulment. So you got to make sure that nothing stands in the way of its lawful celebration. Valid shouldn't be no problem because you get the annulment, but anyone can get an annulment today. I think the annulments are fake, a lot of them, because they're just love-based, but that you can't that's a non-starter with the tribunal. Is it lawful? And I said to myself, since my wife Moira blew past the justice process separation canon 1691 through 96, we say her planned remarriage will be valid but unlawful because she has conflicting responsibilities pending. Yeah, so you're starting a new family, but you still have to deal with your old family, which you haven't done. Right? There's another canon law I want to get to just a minute. Let me think of it. Okay, I found another little wrinkle worth talking about. So canon law 1691, after they get the annulment done, it says, after the sentence, the parties are to be reminded of the moral and even and civil obligations binding them toward one another and toward their children to furnish support and education. What are those what are those moral obligations about education? Well, this is why there must be a ecclesiastical judgment before a civil judgment, because those obligations are the separation having begun. The raising of the children is incumbent upon the innocent spouse. You have to judge who the innocent spouse is. You've got to come up with who's innocent and who's guilty, because everyone who does not go through due process is guilty. It's kind of like, what did it say? You get pulled over. They're like, hey, let me see your license. You're like, I'm not going to show it to you. Do they have a valid license or do they not? Well, they may, but if they don't show it, you're done. You've got to show it or you have no legal right, even though you have, let's just say your license is in your pocket and it's perfectly valid, but you don't show it to the cop, he's going to say, I can't let you drive away until I see your license. You're guilty until proven innocent. Now, if you separate without the bishop, you're guilty until proven innocent. The innocent children the innocent spouse gets the kids. That's it. But if they don't get this straight, then everyone gets their annulment, and we never determine who gets the kids. And I've said this in my last video. This is why the kids get alienated and it rips them in half. it's bad because they don't know who the innocent spouse is, so they can't judge innocence or guilt because they're both parents. Therefore, there is no justice. There's just love, and they become new annulment zombies, which is exactly what the church, the bishops want. It's all part of the new evangelization, right? Make these kids into little Novus Ordo unquestioning zombies. That's what we need. That's what we need. More fodder for our trash. Things are changing because of the internet, luckily. Let's keep going. And then we got another few videos to watch. Now, this is the Acta Apostolicae Sedis. Everyone, that's the official record of the church, when it says something. When there is a question of alleged nullity of the marriage. So you're like, oh, I think my marriage is invalid. Private authority is not recognized as an adequate basis for establishing legitimate separation. This is why when you get that annulment, if you never got public authority judged your separation, you're an abandoner. Abandoners go to hell. Because it's scandal, and it also violates nature, because you're taking off from your you're laying claim to that contract. And let's see what else does it say. Additionally, citing the app, okay, same thing. The guy doing the research, Gibbons, separation of spouses is not a merely civil effect of marriage. Did you hear that? The separation of spouses is not a merely civil effect of marriage. Is that true? Because if you go to ask the priest who's marrying my wife in a month and a half if separation of spouses is a merely civil effect, he'll say, yeah, it's just a merely civil effect. The separation of spouses belongs to the state. And that's what everyone who hears my voice now, who goes to is Catholic, ask their priest, and he'll say the exact same thing. Ask your tribunal. They'll say the exact same thing. However, as I said earlier, if you get down to what they say in their official green Bible, the 2000 commentary, they admit that it's not true. But this is what everyone says today. It's fake, total fake. What we have here is basically Catholic adultery finalized in the annulment remarriage. That's all that's going on by another name. Nothing new under the sun. Everyone wants to trade in their spouse for a new model. Never stops. Everyone wants to do that, obviously. So how do we do it and call it Catholic at the same time? Oh, we just redefine what you consented to, and you can move in and out of that consent because it's not anything anyone can judge. That's how we do it. And then we just judged that it wasn't there in the first place. So there was nothing there. It's like if I went and got really mad at my neighbor and cut his head off with a machete, then I could say he was never really a person in the first place. So I'm guilty of any crime because we just defined him as a non-person. He was just not really my neighbor. Okay. So I'm not guilty for this. Murders skyrocket. All right. I had AI make me a graph. Let me see if I can find that. Just a second. Okay, here's this little visual to help you get a perspective of what's going on and where the annulment explosion that occurred in the United States. And it's not about, well, we needed better catechism or they just changed the rules. No, their marriage was justice-based and objectively defined as a right over the body, okay? All this time, there was statistically 0 annulments, right? Okay? And then all of a sudden, what year? Oh, looks like 1965. Boom. Goes way up, way up. That's what's going on. Huge increase. Gigantic, crazy increase. Now it's falling back down because people just aren't getting married. You've killed marriage. You've killed marriage when you've destroyed the contract. Anyone gets out of their contract, bam. That's all that's happening. This is why these annulments are fake. We need to go back to Catholicism. That's why I say go back to these years, 1900, 1920, 1940, okay, even 1960, before the the definition of the object of consent changed, because after that you got nothing. And then this is all La La Land stuff. The problem is this is a meat grinder for kids. That's the problem. All right, let's keep going. What else did we get on our graph? And we got to go watch another movie too. Even the temporary interruption, as well as the perpetual cessation of the conjugal life by way of separation of the parties, though not, hang on, let me make myself smaller here or bigger or whatever. By way of the separation of parties, though not affecting the bond of marriage, can in no way be specifically considered a merely civil effect, which the state has any native authority. What am I reading from? Oh, this is more of this guy Gibbons, okay? Back because basically this is what everyone used to know. This is why there were no annulments and why there was no divorces, because the church owned, guaranteed marriage rights, and we had separation courts. If you wanted a divorce, you did it on church property first. That's how it worked. And they all went away 5 minutes after marriage got redefined in 1965. Once you started calling marriage merely civil, bam, the state was more than happy to eat your kids. The devil was waiting for them. It's so stupid. And you know why this happened? Because of the God of NFP and conjugal act worship. We're sacrificing family. We're sacrificing the marriage contract. The institution of marriage is being sacrificed to the God of conjugal act worship. That's exactly what's going on. And once you do that, all justice goes out the window. And I'm going to get to we're going to get to some Timothy Gordon marital debt stuff. It's pretty cool what they say. It's not cool. It's revealing what they say. Just keep your shirt on. Let's keep going. So as he said, even if they're separated, it doesn't affect the bond. Everyone agrees with that. That's correct. Can in no way specifically be considered a merely civil effect. That's right. Which the state has any native authority. The state has no native authority over the natural contract of the baptized. That's right. And for that matter, even natural marriage, the bond, because a natural marriage is nature and it's till death. No state can say it's not till death. That's the point. The church may authorize this. Let's see what he says. The church may authorize civil power to grant a sentence of temporal or perpetual separation. What did I just read? Let me scratch my head here and look at this again. What did I just read? The church may authorize the civil power. Oh, no, we don't want to conflict with the civil government. No. Oh, yeah. That marriage, that sacrament belongs to the church first. In Canon 1060 says they're all valid until proven otherwise. So the bishop may authorize the state to grant a sentence of temporal or perpetual separation. But it suffices note here that the civil power, if acting without what am I reading? Hold on a second. But it suffices to note here that the civil power, if acting without ecclesiastical approval, remember, 3rd Baltimore, you got to have the bishop's permission first. Without ecclesiastical approval, may not legitimately sanction a separation of baptized persons. Baptized persons, they belong to God. Everyone else belongs to the devil, so who cares, so to speak. All right? Baptized belongs to God. Unbaptized, give them to the state. Good luck out there, all you Hindus, but not Catholics. Duh. Okay. Legitimate. You cannot give baptized people to the state without ecclesiastical approval. You can't. If you do that, grave sin. When you do that, you've incurred the guilt of grave sin, even though you got the nice shiny annulment and you're planning your nice new wedding with your whatever, your 50-something spouse, the gray Catholic annulment. You aren't going to get away from this. As Father Ripperger says, nobody gets away with anything. So we're informing the Catholic population out there, You think these annulment weddings are squeaky clean? Think again. You have to find out where they came from, and was there a divorce? Okay, and was that divorce taken care of? And I think the answer is going to be no. I don't see how it would. Let's just say, I don't know. In 1977, somebody got married out of the church, and I mean, I suppose if you got two unbaptized people and they got the divorce, but still, they have to determine whether they actually consented to marriage, because even the state cannot undo a natural bond. So I really can't see how any of these annulment weddings should be attended. Give me an example out there. When you hear this, go ahead and push pause, put it in the comments. Give me an example of an annulment wedding that can or should be attended by Catholics. And there might be one. Okay, but like the vast majority, no, because they're basically just divorces. They're just divorces, and they're moving on from. That's all it is. It's divorce and remarriage. And I think like that first Christian video, we said, can you attend? Oh no, this is another video. We're gonna watch it in a minute where they say, can you attend a wedding from divorce? And the answer is no. Okay. The matter of granting a separation between baptized persons belongs primarily to the church as interpreting the divine law or as giving effect to her canonical prescriptions. That's exactly what canon law 1692 says right now. Divine law says it. You could look up canon 1692, done it a zillion times. All right. It's still in canon. All this stuff is still in canon law, just like that. The tribunal that just issued that decree to that email back from that guy I talked about just today. He says, yeah, we're going to look into the separation stuff instead of the annulment. They're basically trying to ape or act Catholic. I don't think they believe it. I don't think they want. I think they're like Matt Walsh. They're a bunch of people who don't care about justice or anything like that, but they have to save face. I think that's what's going on. I would love to be proven wrong, but I seriously doubt it, because if any judge says, any Catholic judge in the annulment says NFP is nature, there's nothing to judge in the separation. There is no injustice occurring. There's no guilty or innocent spouse, because nature is love. Nature is discernment, and it's private. So there's nothing to judge. As long as you got NFP in place, there's no justice that can be found. Hello, no fault. We'll see what happens. Now then, the matter of granting a separation between baptized persons belongs primarily to the church as interpreting divine. Yeah, good. Totally cool. Exactly. So this is this guy, 1947. There's the notes right there. There's a whole book on it. I got the book here somewhere. It's really good. Someone gave me this book. I went to the Catholic Answers Conference to stir up some trouble back in, 2014 or something. They almost didn't let me in there, but I was like, and I met these priests, and this guy said, here's the book. And I was like, whoa, it's around here somewhere. It's a really good book. I got it here somewhere. It's from Saginaw, Michigan. And that I even brought that up to the judicial vicar in Saginaw. It turns out he was some kind of pedophile guy. He got put away. That was in 2016 or so. Let's keep going on this. Mariticide or uxoricide. What are those words? What is this? What is this? What is this? Hey, that's where you kill your spouse. You kill your husband or you kill your wife. That's what it is. And that's exactly what the Jews did. What the Jews did in the Old Testament, because of hardness of heart, it makes the new marriage valid but unlawfully obtained. Now we're getting to the meat of things in this video, okay? Just because the annulment makes it valid, your new marriage valid, doesn't mean it was legally obtained. Dig it? And there's canonical penalties against that. So I'm introducing or pointing out the legal theory here, why you can't commit evil to get something good, right? I think I said that in the beginning of the video. Let me see something. That's exactly what I said in the beginning, Romans 3:8. And not rather, as we are slandered, as some affirm, we say, let us do evil that there may become good, whose damnation is just. If you say, I can get the divorce, and then go get the annulment, and then go get the remarriage, you're damned, because you didn't get you can't, the divorce was evil. This is why it's not cool to egg them on and cheer them on for their remarriage, because they're making it that much harder. And you're also saying there was no damnation there was no divorce sin. Sorry, it's objective. If you filed and you didn't get the permission, it's divorce sin. You cannot take it to heaven with you. Just objective stuff. It's what it is. It's not hard to point out. It's not hard to figure out. Okay, you don't have to follow your conscience on this. You just got to look up what the church teaches. Right before that big old graph, right? Before the huge graph. Where are we? This, the big thing. That. Get back to before we got crazy. Read the stuff in here about what the church teaches, which is what I just read you. Okay? That primarily belongs to the church to interpret the divine law and giving effect to her canonical prescriptions. You got to get the bishop's permission. Now then. Okay. It makes the new marriage valid but unlawfully obtained. Same for smashing one's marital contract via state power. In order to murder one's sacrament via tribunal power to make legal way for the new contract. That's right. So you in the Old Testament, they just pushed their wife off a cliff and like, well, hey, she's dead. Therefore, I can get remarried, right? Marriage ends at death. Looks like she's down there. It looks like her head's got a lot of blood coming out of it. I don't think she's going to last more than about 5 minutes. So let's plan the wedding. Can't do that. You can't do that. And canon law says you can't do that. However, you can take your marriage to the state and they will cut your conjugal rights and your kids in half with a chainsaw and blood goes everywhere. It's a big problem. You can kill them that way and then run off with the new person, right? We'll help that. That's all that's going on. It's modern Old Testament legal stuff. Kill your spouse via self-divorce and annulment, and we'll give you a new spouse. That's all that's going on. It's hardness of heart, which is why God says when you put your spouse away, when you separate from your spouse, you hate them. None of this God hates divorce. That's Protestant. You hate your spouse when you separate from them. That's what you do. Unless there was adultery, unless there was fornication, unless there was immorality. Then what the heck do you do? Annulment proof. You go to the bishop and you get the judgment. Cool. That's it. Everybody knew this forever until the spirit of Vatican II said, let's get love. Let's get a little gut love going in this contract. Now you've taken the legal description of a car and you open up the doors to the car and you say everything that the air inside the car touches to the outside is legally the car. So you have now made a closed door car the entire universe. And there's no legal definition. The car is now everywhere. And we all own it together and we can't say who owns what. So we're not going to judge anything. That's all that's going on here. If that makes sense. If you can envision that. I'm going to make another video about, good fences make good neighbors, good contracts make good marriages. And if you don't have a fence that doesn't exist or a fence that is infinite in scope doesn't exist, okay? And a marriage contract which can't be nailed down doesn't exist. So this is why there's all these divorce. That's why the divorce rate went. There's your statistics right there. It went way up because the contract disappeared overnight in 1965. Disappeared. The devil moved in. All this carnage. Look at the amount of carnage. Insane. The amount of trash that happened to these people. This is huge amount of trash. Really messed people up. You want to know where's the problem with it? And then this is why I'm making these videos too. For the new kids, you hear about all these people trying to become Catholic now and stuff. They're going to go back to these fat boomers in the tribunal, like, hey, what do we do? And like, oh, wow, this is a lot. 2 to get married, 3 to get married, and all that stuff. Nope. Get it straight. Use the internet. Realize that the status quo that gave you this is lying to you about the definition of marriage, which is why there ain't coming on annulment proof. Even though there's some of them that have like videos out there that have like, 10 views or 77 views, or 177, get a lot more. They come on here and we'll actually talk about stuff. Okay. You know what I mean? Now, here's a question. If a Catholic spouse murders their spouse, are they then free to marry? And I asked AI that question, and they says generally no. According to Catholic, because it's not strictly no, but it kind of is. According to Catholic canon law, canon 1090, a person who murders their spouse with the intention of marrying someone else is prohibited from marrying that person, as this creates an impediment of crime. Very basic. Everyone would agree with that. You can't, if you want your husband's inheritance or you want your neighbor's inheritance, or your relative's inheritance, let's go ahead and throw her in the meat grinder so we can get the inheritance early. Nope. That's unjust. You cannot do that. So this obviously, otherwise you would be incentivizing mariticide or uxoricide. And no. But right now, that's what we're doing. We're incentivizing. Marriage is incentivized to disintegrate because you get cash and prizes from the state and you get a shiny new spouse instead of dealing with your cross. You know something? I think Pontius Pilate could have set Christ up a lot nicer. He would have said, hey, I'm going to let you go and everything will be cool. Just forget this I'm a king stuff, right? And there's tons of occasions where saints they've said, look, saint, just give it up. We're going to set you up for life, or we're going to kill you. So those are your options. And people are like, they'll take the easy way out. And that's all we've got now is the easy way out of marriage. And it violates this axiom of law. If a person kills their spouse specifically to marry someone else, they cannot validly marry that person. Right. Okay. Yeah. Intent matters. The murder was not committed to marry a new person. The crime of passion not there. That may create illegal. Okay. Marriage bond. Catholic teaching dictates that marriage is for life. And can be dissolved only by natural death. I don't care if it's a natural marriage, it's a sacramental, none of it. It's all till death. That's right. Repentance. While murder does not permanently bar someone from the sacraments, correct, true repentance and confession are required. So you can murder your spouse and say, I'm just getting a new, you don't have to repent of your murder. Oh, wait a minute. What about if you get a divorce? I don't have to repent for my divorce. I'll just keep moving on. And if I do repent from no, I divorced my spouse, but I'm sorry. And you know what? I'm going to get the annulment and get remarried, but I am sorry for the divorce. And I confessed it, and that's between me and God and my confessor, and you can't judge me. Baloney, I can, which is why I've got judge not here written down, right? Because it's manifest. The guilt it's manifest and it's public. You have to make public restitution because the marriage contract is not just between you and God. It's between everybody involved, as in the wife and as in the spouse and the kids, right? So if you're going to go true repentance, you need true restitution. It's got to be public. You need that bishop's decree, the bishop's permission, or you got to move back home. That's going to put a cramp in your remarriage, right? Oh, yeah. Therefore, we say we don't have to do any of that and we just get the remarriage going. And then this is why I'm making this video. Don't go to these annulment weddings unless you absolutely know that there's no prior impediments, like they need to take care of their kids, or they have to allow the innocent spouse to educate, or there was no divorce guilt that needs to be dealt with. There's 1,001 different situations out there, and I can't think of them all right now, but generally the lion's share of them are, I got a divorce, I got a new shiny new person I like, I'm going to marry this person in the church, and if you don't let me do this, I'm going to be Lutheran. No, we're going to let you do it. So you destroy marriage to let them do this, and that's how you get that huge graph. That's how you get that. You let all these people redo their marriage becomes meaningless and everyone bails on it. And like I said, the only reason it's gone down here is because there's just not enough marriages left. There's not enough annulments left. Everyone's like, forget it. Why are we even? No. The solution to the whole problem is the marriage contract. Define the contract. Good contracts make good marriages. I'm going to do it. I got so much stuff I want to make videos about. I guess these dang things are going to be long, but it's like, oh, well, there people who want to watch will watch, and there's all kinds of cool things I'm getting to. So hold on. Now then, we got done with our AI. Now this is, here we go. Page 1291. This is of oh, wait. Let's go and watch a video first, and we'll come back to this. Okay, back after my Joe Biden nap, feeling much better. This is a brain crusher. You think it's hard to listen to me? Ha, man. Okay, but let's just see what a little nap on the couch does. Now, this Code of Canon Law commentary. We're back to the Bible, right, you guys? And I was telling you, this law. You cannot escape Catholicism. You can bury it. You can put it away. You can pretend it doesn't exist. You can, on the surface, say it's not there anymore, kind of like capital punishment is intrinsically evil. You can say that. You can try to say that in so many words, but you can't get rid of it because it's in the Bible, right? You know what I'm saying? Pontius Pilate. Okay, enough said. Listen, page 1291 of the Canon Law Bible. What does it say? Canon 1090. Now back to our topic of can you go to an annulment wedding? I say no. I say no because you're endorsing the sin of divorce. You're telling everyone that it's okay. Anyone with a view to entering marriage with a certain person has brought about the death of the person's spouse or one's own spouse invalidly attempts marriage. This is what we already talked about, okay? Those who have brought about the death of a spouse by mutual physical or moral cooperation also invalidly attempt a marriage together, because the crime that gives rise to an impediment to marriage is conjuicide. So, crime in scare quotes, but it is a crime. And they're basically saying, look, this is unjust. Yes, the marriage would be valid, but it's unjust. So we're going to create a canon law against it. You could eliminate that canon law. The Pope could get rid of that canon law because there's nothing in divine law which says you can't kill your spouse in order to be validly married to someone else. It's just, it violates, it's murder, but you can off your spouse. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's not, you can't do it. Okay, so listen. There's that. That's the crime. Although historically, the primary, well, let's hold on a second. When you read these guys, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to be careful because they're trying to balance modernism with the past, with Catholicism, and it can't be done. It can only be very carefully worded so you don't notice. But we're going to notice right now. Because I spent a lot of time up at night reading the stuff for y'all. Isn't that exciting? The crime, okay. Although historically the primary focus of this impediment was adultery. Yeah, okay. If you commit adultery, then wait. I got to push pause for a second. Get this down. Hang on a minute. Yeah. So they're saying, look. You committed adultery and you're trying to fix your adultery. So how do you do that? You kill your spouse. So therefore you're free to get married. That's the whole thing. And that's all that's going on with the annulments today. I don't know. What is it? 9 times out of 10? A lot of times people, they get the new spouse. Now they get the new interest. They commit adultery. They're like, I'm into this new person, but I got this problem. Okay, hang on. My dog wants to come in just a second. So they get the new spouse. Now there's nothing new here. So instead of killing your spouse, you just kill them through the court. You take them out through legal fiat. You're like, you pick up the phone, you say, typically it's the wife, get rid of my husband, give me all his stuff. Then you call the bishop and you say, annul this marriage. I got someone on the side. And they go, no problem, honey, done. That's basically what happens. Instead of her having to pick up a gun and shoot the husband, you just do it through the court. It's like the same thing. This is why they call it Catholic divorce, whatever. That's all that's going on here. For those who have eyes to see, that's it. Now, because this is why you're not allowed to just do that, but you have to get the bishop's permission. NFP says you don't. because it's no longer a natural contract. It's a love thing. Nobody can judge your love. No, no, no. I can use NFP because I've discerned, and no one can judge that, right? Nature is up for discernment. Marriage is up for discernment. There is no black and white. It's not an abortion if I decide it's not. If I've discerned it's okay, it's okay. See what I'm saying? It's the same deal. So if I don't want this baby, I can kill the baby and you can't judge me. If I don't want this marriage, I can kill it through legal means and no, you can't judge me. That's all that's going on. That's why they have that law. Like I said earlier, this one, where'd it go? Where there is question of alleged nullity of marriage, private authority is not recognized as an adequate basis for establishing legitimate separation. Now it is, because NFP says private authority is good enough to judge love, and love is the contract. Love is the drug I'm thinking of. It's all legal now, so it's all private now. Once you make marriage private, look what happens. Bam. I can get out, and it's all legal. That's what happens. Continuing. The principle underlying this impediment. Okay, here's like one of the main focuses of this video. Get it? Check this out. I'm going to put all these show notes in the link in the video so you can have them. The principle underlying this impediment is that no one should receive a benefit as a direct result of his or her crime. What do all the red pillars say? What does Pearl Davis say? What do all the people in Pearl Davis's comments say? Don't enter a contract where they're rewarded to get out of it. Bad plan, bad plan. A lot of female brains do that. It's what they do. Why are 3/4 of the divorces initiated by women? Because they go with their feelings. It's always been said, if women couldn't vote, there'd be no more Democrats, because they go with their feelings. Communists know that. That's why they want women to vote. Okay. And I think, what was it said? I can't remember the name of the lady right now. Her name escapes me, but she was just saying that the Rockefellers, the people in charge, they were kind of pushing the suffragette thing, the women vote, because they knew they could get into power that way. Okay, so once you allow benefits as a result of crime, people will take it, and it's typically the woman who takes it because she operates more in emotion than what's duty, what they should do. Okay. Anyhow, you could go either way, but not statistically. This is why it's a feminist law. You're receiving a benefit as a direct result of the crime. What is the crime we're referring to? Divorce. You go to hell for that. That's the crime. You're taking your family and you're throwing it to the wood chipper, aka divorce court, where they don't care. There is no fault, no justice, no right and wrong. We're just going to kill it. If it gets in here, we're going to kill it. Anybody want to take a field trip of sobriety? You want to see what the edge of purgatory looks like? Go to divorce court and hang out. You see a bunch of 40-something people with bags under their eyes that look really sad because they're seeing their kids getting ripped in half. Okay? It's super sick. People who've been there know what I'm talking about. The rest of you guys, you got to go check out whatever floor it is, the 6th floor of the whatever building downtown. It's nasty. It's gross. It's the worst. The impediment arises when, for the sake of marriage with a definite person, one murders his or her own spouse for the spouse for that person. Since impediment that restricts free exercise of right must be interpreted strictly, the impediment arises only when the marriage bond which ceases when the murder is a valid one. All right. They say this is said to make it sound like, look, it's only an impediment if you had a valid marriage. Every marriage is valid. Like I said, Canon 1060, it's valid until proven otherwise. That's why private judgment cannot serve to grant separation. You have to go through the bishop. So all you hear about today, and the reason why they have this sentence in here is because they're like, this only applies to valid marriages. All these marriage laws, all that stuff, fidelity, all that. That only applies to valid marriages. My marriage isn't valid. That's why I get to do all this stuff, because I've decided, because it's all private now, just like the graph shows. Boom. Okay, so they're pointing. Anyway, that's why they say this, because they're like, yeah, you can get through with it. You can get by with a lot of stuff if you declare it not valid. That's Vatican II speak. Everything's valid until proven otherwise. Otherwise, the crime would only be conjuicide but homicide. Yeah, duh, that's right. It is not required that the other person participate or even be aware that the murderer's actions and intent. However, it is required, however, that one's action actually bring about the death, blah, 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 carried out. Yeah. No accident of killing one's own spouse. It is sufficient that one murder one's own spouse for the purpose of becoming free to remarry in general. The murder must be open the way to a marriage with a definite person. Either way, yeah, So therefore, I could murder my spouse and have nobody in mind, then 10 minutes later say, oops, I guess I'm going to pick this person so now I can get married. That's why AI says generally murdering your spouse bars you from getting remarried, but not always. Because as long as you don't have your new person in mind and you just off your spouse, and if you can get away with it, you like go to the tribunal like, hey, sorry, what happened? They're not here anymore. Yeah, something happened. So we went to a Hillary Clinton convention and something happened backstage. It disappeared. But anyway, there's that. That's how that goes. But the main point is you commit a crime, you should not get a benefit. That is the legal axiom, which is totally violated by this annulment or us industrial complex we have going on. And these tribunal workers, boy, all these judicial vicars and stuff, they are churning these things out. And when you ask them about it, they pull the shade down. Nope, nothing to see here. No questions. No. They're guilty as sin. When you bring this to them, they're like, oh, we just can't go there. We're not talking about that. They can't. There's nothing they can say. Again, we're trying to bring Catholicism into their modernist world, and it won't work. So therefore, Catholicism is not allowed. Conversation over. And what are you going to do about it, punk? Nothing, except get on YouTube and see if you can get a little traction. So that's what we're doing. Marriage bans, you guys know what those are. They used to be required for everyone. Oh, you know what we should do before we get into that? Let's watch a little video. Hang on a minute. This is some SSPX priest. I don't necessarily care for them. I shouldn't put it that way. SSPX is off the reservation. However, like Protestants, and everyone says some true things. I think he's got a couple of quotes that are good. We're going to play him. Let's see what he says.
Can I attend the marriage of a divorcee?
No.
Right there. Like I've been saying before, can I attend the marriage of a divorcee? No. I don't know why he's grinning or why he's smiling. People think this stuff is, I don't know why they think anything is funny like that. I don't get it. No, because they're married to somebody else. Duh. But it's also that marriage is the contract itself, not merely the sign of the sign of the covenant. It's not only that, it's also the contract. So these annulments are based on no contract, sign only. This is why, like I say, the annulment wedding is basically unless there's been public restitution to the divorce, there has been the civil effects, not the civil effects, the spiritual effects, the kids, all that have been given to the innocent spouse or whatever. If that's all been worked out, now you kind of have something otherwise you've got this loose end, you've got this nature hanging there that you can't deal with. Sort of like you can't do the autopsy until the soul has left the body, right? Hang on.
Okay. Unless they're divorced because, for instance, they had a marriage that was declared null.
What did he just say? Okay, sorry, Mr. SSPX, you're in big trouble. Unless the divorce was as the result because the marriage was declared null. He's got it 180 degrees backwards. That's totally wrong. All this stuff is politics. This NFP and annulment stuff is politics. Some of these super mega trad, what do you call it? Heavens to mega trad. What do you call it? There's the Pius X, but there's the Pius V, and everyone in between, and all these guys. A lot of them still are NFP because of politics, I think. We got to replay this. He's got it backwards. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Hang on. Get back here. Get back here. Go.
Can I attend the marriage of a divorcee?
No.
Okay.
Unless they're divorced because, for instance, they had a marriage that was declared null.
Unless they're divorced because they had a marriage that was declared null. How stupid is that? Can I perform an autopsy on a live person? No, unless you performed an autopsy on a live person that you knew you were going to kill. Okay, divorce comes before the annulment. The separation of spouses comes before the annulment. So unless it was a legitimate separation of spouses in accord with divine law, you have killed what God put together. The separation must be in accord with divine law, which we already read, and it's in Canon 1692. That means the bishop has to get the kids and the money and the property to go to the innocent spouse. Every separation has a guilty spouse and an innocent spouse, because marriage is justice. Just like if someone breaks into your house and steals your stuff, there's one guilty person and one innocent person. Okay? There's no gradation of guilt and innocence on divorce. Somebody's the guilty party because someone is the moving party because somebody claimed authority over the contract. That narcissist thing, that entitlement thing. Guess what? I'm claiming authority. Therefore, they are the guilty party unless proven innocent, because they go to the bishop and they say, I know I did the divorce, but the reason I did it was because X, Y, and Z, and I couldn't wait to get your permission because I had to do X, Y, and Z, and here it is. And the bishop says, you're exactly right. By the way, side note, 100% of divorces in the United States today are grave sin. Listen to what I said. Quote me on that. 100% of divorces in the USA today are grave sin, because there's legal separation available in all 50 states. And if it's not openly legal separation, it's legal separation by another name, like in Texas. They call it SAPSER, I think. It's suits for that's the acronym. So you're basically is support for the children, but it's legal separation. Okay. So the 5 states that don't have legal separation, they do have legal separation. It is never the only possible way to protect rights of the kids. Never. Not today. Not in the USA. No, 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 no. So there's another reason why you shouldn't go to the annulment wedding. Okay. Because they never needed to get that divorce. It's always grave sin. They got to go back and get the legal separation only. And you still can get an annulment without a divorce. That is all fake. This whole thing that you have to have a divorce to get an annulment. No, you don't. The only reason they say that is because someone has to adjudicate the separation of spouses, which I'm going to get into, before there is an annulment. And the church with their separation courts were the ones who always did it, aka fault-based separation. Until about the time the White Album came out, then they just disbanded because marriage became love. All you need is love. NFP says we're having love in the law now. There's nothing left to adjudicate because it's all private. It's all matters of the heart now. So there's that. So he's saying divorce is wrong unless you got the divorce for an invalid. So still the point is that you committed this crime of divorce, and then you had you can't uncrime it later, is my point. You because divorce is inherently unjust today. There's no such thing as a no fault fault-based divorce or a no fault justice-based divorce. So unless you get that bishop's permission, that's basically what he should say. Unless you get a bishop's permission to go to civil court for a separation, the you shouldn't be going to the wedding. He can't say that. He doesn't. He's never even thought of that. It's never occurred to him. He's just saying what they told him in seminary and stuff.
So Catholic goes through a process, and the church decides, yes, in fact, you never had a marriage to begin with. Generally speaking, the state doesn't recognize that, won't nullify a marriage if the Catholic Church does, so you get a divorce. So in that sense, if you're a divorcee, where it's because of a null marriage that you had, the Catholic Church has decided that, that's different. But somebody who has simply decided to get out of their real marriage and marry somebody.
Yeah, so all these people who got the annulments basically just did decide to get out of their real marriage. They say, I want out. How do you get out? Just follow your heart. First step, file for divorce. It's really easy. They'll help you out. You just got to walk down there with your hoop earrings, chewing gum, and they'll fill out the paper for you. Boom, you get your divorce. Boom, you get the kids and the money. Head down to the tribunal down the street. Say, I want the annulment. They'll say, here you go. Tell us you didn't know what you were doing when you got married, and we'll believe that. And then you get your annulment. And that's basically what happens. So as I already just explained, that nowadays, this is why I'm making the video, to inform people that what appears to be all legal is a crime based on loopholes. There's other analogies you could use. It's I don't know. It's kind of like, oh, let's say you're super over the limit and the cops pull you over for drinking. So you get out of the car and you just grab your Jack Daniels and drink it like that. And you're like, hey, I'm not driving. And that's how you get my blood alcohol. So they just get, it's like fake, totally fake. You were drinking and driving, but you can't prove it now. I've seen those videos. I don't think that really works, but we're trying to not to let this work either. So let's go to the next video. I think there's one more of this guy. Okay, here, let's check this out. Share this tab instead. What is this one about? Let's rewind it a bit and see what we got. Let's see.
Because attending, participating in, recognizing, or supporting that is to participate in the sin of the couple.
Good point. Just like the Protestant video said, it's participating in the sin of the couple. So in my wife's case, she's marrying this dude who's got the wife and kids already, but he got the annulment, the McNulment, and now he's after her. And he should realize that even if he thinks his annulment is right or something, that chances are it was his wife that did the divorce. In my case, he should recognize that Moira basically just did the divorce to get out of it. And it wasn't legitimate because she never got the bishop's permission. There was never any due process. Basically, when someone files for a divorce, the other spouse is guilty until proven innocent, and they are never proven anything. You're just out because you're guilty. You are guilty of losing your lawsuit and having committed the crime of being improper in marriage, but we can't say how or why. We're just going to say that. That's what they do.
You're becoming a participant to their sins by doing.
Good point. If the Bible says the same thing, like the Protestant video earlier, you're participating in their sins. Anyone who wants to go to my wife's wedding coming up at May 23rd, or all these other annulment weddings, you're participating in their sins. You got to learn for yourself the circumstances. Was it an annulled marriage? Did someone get a divorce, and were they able to get permission for their divorce? Is their divorce still a sin which needs to be publicly restituted? Get public restitution for that sin, because divorce is a public sin. It's a manifest sin. It involves more than one person. It's not a secret sin. It's not a private sin. It's public sin. You have to. I don't know. It's like, let's say someone says, hey, I'm inviting you guys out 4th of July. We're having a huge party on my brand new yacht. It's going to be so cool. However, you found out that they stole that yacht and killed a few people to get it. And they're inviting you. Everyone kind of knows that. If you have no conscience and you're just a drug dealer, you might be into going to the party. But no, you're like, I'm not participating in this because you actually stole the yacht and you committed some crimes to get it. So I'm not participating in this remarriage because you actually stole the vows from somebody else and you committed a crime to get that annulment done. You committed the crime of divorce. You go to hell for that. I'm not going to help you put the bury this over, in cement. Actually, I'm interested in your salvation. So I'm going to decline this, and I'm going to tell you, you need to either reconcile with your spouse or go get the bishop to straighten this. You get public restitution. You can't resolve the sin of divorce in confession. There's another quote for you. You cannot get absolved for the sin of divorce in confession unless you move back home. But if you're not going to move back home, you have to get public you have to get a decree, a piece of paper from the bishop, which says he has investigated the case and determined that your spouse is Charles Manson. So, and after a particular investigation, we've determined that. That's what you got to do. All right, let's see here.
That. And since their sin is a grave sin, at least on an objective level, participation in their sin is also a grave sin.
I like what he said, objectively. That's right. So all this grave sin objectively. Hello, very good, totally good. Right on the money. All this stuff about we can't judge their sin or no sin. We leave it up to God, and we don't want to judge anyone else. We don't want anyone to judge us, so we're not going to judge them. We trust the church on this. Okay. There's an article I got to read. Apparently, St. Joan of Arc's mom was way up on getting justice for St. Joan of Arc, who got burned at the stake. She was the saint known as getting burned twice. I'm going to in the show notes, I'm going to find that story and put it in there. I don't want to mess with it right now, but it's good. I got to write that down to myself, St. Joan of Arc. Anyway, there's an example of tribunals gone crazy. Tribunals gone wild. Burning saints at the stake. Tribunals can get things wrong. They sure can, depending on their political motivations or their ideological motivations. The people working at the tribunals are divorce ideologues. That's what they are. Just like the people working at Planned Parenthood are abortion ideologues. That's what they are. That's what they turn into. And the people who aren't, they quit Planned Parenthood or they quit working at the tribunal. What I'd really like is to find anybody who worked at the tribunal, or was a priest who worked at anybody who's basically defected and come out and wants to talk a little bit. That would be like serious gold if we can find that. Because sometimes, you find people, who is it, like Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who left his abortion stuff behind and spilled the beans and talked about it. If we can find an ex-tribunal personnel person who could talk, that would be super amazing. That's like, there's a break the internet thing right there. A lot of people would want to hear about that. I'd like to find that person. So if you know anybody. Okay, let's see what else.
Objectively speaking.
What?
So that's sort of the simple answer where we come from. But
okay, so that was the end of that video. So that's that. Let's go back to our, hang on a second. I found the Joan of Arc page real quick. I'll put this in the deal. It's pretty cool. So they just talk about the mother who goes on to rescue, or to basically bring justice to when they killed her daughter, Joan of Arc. So here's the tribunal right there. Trust the church. Look what's going on. They're burning that witch, right? See what I'm saying? It's pretty cool artwork. I just got to check this out. But anyway, this is just news to me right here. That is the mother that brought justice to the whole gig. All right, let's get back to our notes. The boring notes. You guys are so disciplined, you're willing to hear this stuff. Let's keep going. Marriage ban, 1675. The judge, before he accepts a case, must be in. Okay, here. All right, let's listen to a little more canon law. They spill the beans. The judge, the tribunal judge, the guy who just burned Joan of Arc, before he accepts a case, he must be informed that Joan of Arc is a witch and can't be and won't give up her witch situation. All right. Guess who informed the judge of that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was some anti-Joan of Arc neighbor of hers. It's a witch that she is. That's right. Yes, I heard it. Okay. Boom. So who legally is to inform the judge that the marriage, conjugal living cannot be restored? He must be informed. By who? Where does he get his information? He's got to inform himself from a legal court of law, justice of law. This is why Canon 1696, you have to, right, it's right there. Cases concerning the separation of spouses must also pertain to the public good. Therefore, the promoter of justice must always take part in them, okay? Promoter of justice, does that sound like no fault to you? The no fault promoter of justice, right? No. The burning, the promoter of burning at the stake, it's like, no, you have to have justice in a court of law. That's what separation courts are. However, with no fault courts, there's no justice. So, you know where they get their information? They get their information from the divorce decree, the no fault divorce decree. So they're like, yeah, somebody off the street said Joan of Arc is a witch. Boom, she's a witch. We've been informed of that. Burn her. Okay. Now, one spouse says, I don't stone cold like my spouse anymore. Boom. No conjugal living. I took him to no fault divorce court and the judge agreed. Of course, what else is he going to do? It's crazy. So that's how they get their information. Super sick. You ask them, where do you get, they have to get informed by real law, real information. You can't just inform them from a no-fault source, nor it is a legal axiom that no one can judge their own case. Therefore, we can't ask the other spouse. We can't ask no-fault court. Who do we ask? Separation court. Where's the separation court? It's gone. Not there. This is one of the most tight-lipped secrets the tribunal will not get into. Where's your separation court? What separation court? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh my, look at the time. That's what they say. It's completely sick what these guys are doing. Did you remember the graph way up on the annulments? You know how many kids get absolutely massacred from that? Tons of them. Sifted like wheat, man. And the devil gets in there because the kids are wounded. Just like parasites and germs get into open wounds that are not healed. That's what, it's so sick. Then what happens to the parents? The devil loves divorce. He is so into it because he can get in everywhere really easy. Although saints can be created like Joan of Arc, but that's the exception, right? Okay, here's AI. Prior to 2015, Canon 1676 placed the responsibility on the judge to use pastoral means to induce the spouses to restore conjugal living whenever there was hope. So the canon used to be better, but still, I don't know, I think it's better now because it's more legal. It's like, look, somebody has to inform the judge, and you need to tell me who that person is. And that person can't be biased. That person has to be objective and justice-based. And who is that person? Only the judge after a Catholic separation court. That's the only purpose. Okay, so before you can start an annulment, you've got to get your separation straightened out. All these annulment weddings you see, all of them, none of them have had a separation case. None of them. It just hasn't happened. It would be front page news. It just hasn't happened. I can't see anywhere where someone would have done this. It just doesn't happen. There's no way. It's like, could a bishop ban communion in the hand in his diocese? Yeah. Does he do it? No. This just doesn't happen. So there's nowhere where going on today where they got an actual separation decree where they had the actual, because they won't do the cases unless you really insist and you really know what you're talking about and you get lucky. But anyway, it's just statistics now. So prior to Canon 2015, I guess I'm saying this is like, we want to try to turn the tide. We want more people to bring these cases. We want people to actually get back and be Catholic again. So we got to keep trying. You got to get the information out there. When I first started opening my mouth about this, when I started figuring this out, even back in 2012, I'm like, how come nobody knew that you needed the bishop's permission to divorce? Like, nobody even knew it. Now it tends to be more common knowledge. More people know it. But nobody knows that you got to have the, nobody knows that you have to, adjudicate your separation, it's a sin to not adjudicate it through the church and go get the annulment. They think the annulment whitewashes the rest of it away. It does not. Does not. Just like if you have a party on the yacht, the way you got the ends don't justify the means. You can't reward with a crime with a reward. Anyway, so they used to try to restore conjugal living whenever there was hope, but he could say, there's no hope. Use pastoral means. Oh, let's check something out just a second. I'll give you some pastoral means. According to AI, this is what it looks like when you get divorced without the bishop's permission. So let's get pastoral, okay? You're thinking it's going to be kind of nice for you and everything like that. This is what you get for all eternity, and it gets worse and worse. It never gets better, right? Can you feel the pastoral coming through here? This is what we don't want for you. So it's not cool to pretend this isn't going to happen. Objective, all right? Got that? Yeah. But now they don't say anything about it because, hey, if you're not feeling it, if this isn't good for you, then, takes two to tango. And if you don't want to. So we're not going to force anybody to stay together because if there's no fault, there's no force. You just leave if you want. Peace in, peace out. There's no contract. There's no nothing. Therefore, there's no sin. There's no offense. No one goes to hell anyway. That could be another reason why everyone goes to heaven today. They don't want to go there. Oh, man. Don't get me started. That little clip I got, that was from Avoiding Babylon, by the way. Canon 1695. Before accepting a case, whenever there's hope of favorable outcome, the judges to use... Yeah, we already read that. Right. Yep. 1696, we already wrote that too. Okay. Now, this is page 1255 from the Green Bible. New Code of Canon Law commentary that every canonist has on his desk, 100% guaranteed. They're all there. They know what it is. They got the page numbers. You can tell them about it if you want. Since the church considers the marital sacrament and the marital contract to be inseparable, they're admitting some serious Catholic stuff here, you guys. I told you they've got, when push comes to shove, just like CCC 2384, we have to admit that marriage violates nature because it takes the contract and you lay claim over your own contract. That's what happens. You're violating nature when you do that. Just like you're violating nature when you lay claim to the baby in your womb and you have it exterminated. That's a violation of nature. You have no right to do that. You're laying claim to that. You have no right to violate the marriage contract and the kid's right to the natural law right to an intact home. You have no right to touch that. You touch that, you get to join those skulls down there in hell. That's what you get. You don't want to do that. I know it's tempting. So what's really sick is to say, they're there, it's okay, we understand you've had a hard time. This is why going to these annulment weddings is kind of setting them up for this. It's pushing them even further into it, all right? And you don't want to endorse their sin. That's what you're doing. So you could make the case that it's a sin to go to an annulment wedding. You could easily make that case. But nowadays, there's so much ignorance out there, it's a mile high. That how many times have you heard anybody say, hey, is it okay to go to a Catholic annulment wedding? Zero times. This is the only time it's ever been brought up on the internet. Don't you think? Probably. I don't think so. Here we go. Okay, we got to get going somewhere, somehow. Since the church considers the marital sacrament and the marital contract to be inseparable, which they are, you cannot separate the contract from the sacrament. That is Catholic. That's in, Arcanum, encyclical, number 23. It is forbidden. You can never separate the contract from the sacrament. What does that mean? That means you give the contract to the state for slicing and dicing, and then you bring the sacrament down the street to the tribunal to get exterminated. No one is allowed to do that. You cannot do that. They even admit it right here, but they do it every day. This is a heresy. To separate the contract from the sacrament is a heresy because you're taking what's nature and you're calling it not nature. That's what NFP does. You're saying what's nature and you're calling it not nature. You're calling it strictly sacrament, or you're calling it strictly sign. You can't separate the sign from the nature. But your bishop, if you can hear me right now, your bishop says, yes, you can, because he'll say, divorce is not a sin. Go ahead, honey. Separate your contract from your sacrament. Go right ahead. That is what he's telling you. And you go to hell for that. But people are so ignorant, they don't know it. So I'm trying to get a little info going. And those who have ears to hear, you know what I'm saying? It's like sensus fidelium here. By the way, Steve Cunningham at Sensus Fidelium, he doesn't even want to go hear of some of this stuff, especially on the NFP. It's like it's a lot of politics, man. Father Nürnberger, same kind of thing. Okay, it does. So NFP is at the root of all this. NFP is the one thing that is keeping all this alive. You ask yourself, why don't these bishops follow their own canon law? Why don't they uphold? Why don't they say you have to get the bishop's permission? Answer, NFP. You want to touch NFP, everything comes crashing down and the churches empty out. And then all we have to admit all these annulments were wrong. It's kind of like a priest who after 60 years or he's been a priest for 30 years and it turns out he was invalidly ordained. All those sacraments are, other than baptism, they're all invalid. Crisis, anyone? How about all these marriages invalid? It's like you're ruining the kids. It's so bad. Okay, I got to take this off. It does not recognize the state's competence to regulate marriage itself. That's true when it involves a Catholic. Exactly right. That's what I've been saying. The Catholic Church does not recognize the state's competence to regulate marriage itself when it involves a Catholic, as in a baptized person. Anyone who's baptized belongs to God. The marriage contract is regulated by the church, not the state. We've already covered that, but they're basically admitting it in softer language. Even the new modernists are admitting the Catholic part out loud. But this stuff is no one ever kind of looks at this page, but we are right now. Nevertheless, the church does normally encourage, see these like kind of fluff edge words, the kind of like, well, sort of, kind of, maybe. The church does normally encourage the faithful to observe the prescriptions of civil law. Yeah. When they are reasonable and designed to promote the common good. So they're kind of letting you know, look, come on, man. Hey, if it's reasonable to get a divorce, go ahead. That's what they're trying to communicate, but that's not what they're saying here. And they're actually talking about getting a marriage license first and stuff like that. There's a lot of gaslighting going on in these words. Thus, it usually insists that Catholics comply with civil laws governing, governing what? Governing such issues as matrimonial impediment. Like, okay, if the civil law says you can't marry a goat, okay. Obtaining a marriage license, you got to do X, Y, and Z to get a license, okay. And the form to be observed when celebrating marriage. Yeah, like it has to be done this way. Those are reasonable, normal state things because the state has an interest in marriage because kids are the fruit of the marriage. Kids are the purpose of the marriage. And when you raise kids without a marriage, you get orcs. It's called Operation Orc Production. We don't want that. The state has an interest in morality. That's why the state needs to be involved in marriage. But when the state is involved in anti-marriage, which you saw from my graph earlier where it just went way up, they create orcs. They create Catholic orcs that are just into, Christopher West and Father Mike Schmitz. It's like we're just going with everyone goes to heaven and we're trying to get into our love thing and all that. The church, however, or they're just completely like out of it. Christmas and Easter people. The church, however, reserves the right to ignore such laws if they are contrary to divine law. Wow. Contrary to divine law. Okay. So we're going to be at odds with what the church is saying if it's contrary to divine law. We're going to be at odds with the state or unreasonably restrict the freedom of Catholics to marry. I'm going to look at one thing from the Tribunal of Arizona. Hold on a second. Okay, so speaking of church and state, here's just a little demonstration of how they're totally contradicting themselves on the tribunal page, but they have no answer for it. So let's go through it real quick. Here, do I need to be civilly divorced before petitioning for annulment? And they say, yes, you do. A civil divorce is a definitive separation of the spouses and serves as an indicator that the marriage and common life, for all intents and purposes, ceased. So they, like I said, who is going to reliably inform the judge that things are irreparable? Well, a no-fault divorce judge who doesn't care about justice at all. Okay, so they're saying this is why you have to, someone's got to do it, and we're going to let the state do it. It's super sick. Let's keep going, though. If the church were to, like we just read, what did we just read earlier? We said that the Catholics must comply with civil laws, except they should ignore those laws when they are contrary to divine law. So the church defers to a state authority over merely civil effects, but if it's not a civil effect, no. If it conflicts with divine law, you can't go with it. Right. Now, oh shoot. What did I just do? Darn it, I got to go back. Hold on just a minute. Where is it? It's right here. This one. Sorry, this one. Now, if the church were to declare a marriage no longer binding, so if you got your annulment before divorce, while the couple remains civilly bound to one another, it would create numerous problems. What problems? What do you mean? So with custody of children, financial disputes, and put the church at odds with civil authorities. The church is, hey, remember, I think in the Passion of the Christ, we got to put down this uprising. And the guy says, hey, there already is an uprising, all right? The church is at odds with civil authorities already. It's called marriage. It's called who has control over the sacrament, who has control over the kids. The bishop does, not the state. The church is at odds right now with the state, and they should be, because the state has no justice, and marriage requires justice. A promoter of justice, in fact, 1696. So we don't want to have the church at odds with the civil authorities, do we? The civil authority. That sounds risky. That sounds like scary. What if the civil authorities find the church at odds? I don't want the civil authorities coming to get me. No! We'll just sacrifice your kids to those civil authorities and watch what they do, right? They'll put a drill bit right through their hearts. What could go wrong? As long as they don't come get us in the tribunal. Oh, man, the civil authorities. Oh, give me a break, you sickos, and man up and defend marriage. You got to define it first, but you won't even do that, you little NFP freaks. Get it straight. Look at this. Okay, if the church were to declare a marriage no longer binding, while the couple still moral, it would create numerous problems with child custody of children. So they are admitting that child custody, rights to educate your children, daily access to your own kids is a competence primarily of the state. If you're married in the church, you're baptized, all that stuff, they are saying, go ahead, the state owns those kids from the get-go. But we just read earlier that no, they don't. You cannot separate the sacrament from the contract. Phoenix, Arizona, right there. See that? diocesantribunal.org right there. They say, yes, you can, and yes, it is. And we don't want the civil authorities to get bothered by us. Screw that. Rescue the frickin' kids. They're getting chewed to bits by the civil authorities because you're having no justice. It's like a no-fault abortion. Hey, we don't want to be in trouble with this. We don't want to be at odds with the civil authorities. If we protest abortion, we're going to be at odds with the civil authorities. Oh, no, we don't want that. No fault abortion. Okay? So they're admitting that the kids belong to the state. When You get married today. Your kids do not belong to you. This is why you have to take marriage in-house and marry someone who understands they're going to hell, like the video we watched a little while ago, if they take their kids and give it to the state first. That's how you can do marriage. That's the answer to red pill. Good contracts make good marriages. What does the contract stipulate? No one takes the kids to the state without the bishop first. And if you do, you're going to hell. That's pastoral. That helps nature. That helps. This is why everyone stayed married before, because everyone was on the same page on this, and it's all freaking crazy train, free for all right now. Let's go to an email I sent to the Archdiocese of Phoenix on this very topic and see what they said. It said, I emailed them, and I go, "Dear Tribunal, from your website, the annulment process is purely religious." That's what it says on the rest of it. It does not involve custody of children. So, okay, therefore, if a religious annulment process does not pertain to child custody, then religious marriage does not pertain to child custody either. Is that correct? In other words, do parents have a right to child custody? And you know what they said? No comment. We are not answering you. Go ahead and ask the Phoenix Tribunal this question. It's right there. You can read it. Go ahead. Let me know if they say anything back. They're very easy to reach, but they won't talk because they are violating what it says right here in our canon, but they're also violating what it says right here. The church considers the sacrament and the contract to be inseparable. The Archdiocese of Phoenix and your archdiocese, everywhere else in the whole country, also considers the contract and the sacrament to be separable. We are going to separate them because the contract has no rights and there's nothing for us to judge. So we're going with no fault. So that's all. So there's nothing we no longer need to make sure divine law is involved, because divine law has no effect on a no fault situation. And marriage is now love-based because of NFP, so it's all no fault. So we've taken what is Catholic and we have trashed it, but no one's allowed to go there and talk about it. So when you go knock, it's kind of like, let's say you build a house and your neighbors next to you, right? You got their property line, your property line, their lot, your lot. You build a house and you build a swimming pool about 6 feet onto their property line, the whole thing. And then about a month comes by and, you're swimming in the pool and they say, "Hey, guess what? Looks like according to the map and according to the deed and everything else, you're 6 feet onto my property." And they go, "I'm not having this conversation. And I think you're being difficult. And I don't want there to be anything at odds between us. So you're just going away now." That's all that's happening. And then you call the police or you call the city and you're like, "Do something about this. Look, it's obviously clear." They're like, "We're just not going to, it's a no fault pool placement state. So we're not going to prosecute that." And those laws are archaic now. We don't do that. So there you go. Sorry you can't drive your car into the driveway anymore because there's a pool in the way. I guess you could drive your car in a rock star style into their pool. So, but it's spice of life. What are you going to do? That's what's going on here, except they're dealing with your kids, your marriage. You got one shot to live this life. We're going to have you sign on the dotted line, and we're going to take away everything right after the wedding and say, "Lots of luck. Good luck to you. Anything happens, the state is going to shred it, and we'll be waiting for you with a new spouse if you want, and we'll give you communion while you commit the sin of divorce." Hell, anyone? Bad luck, bad plan. I don't think guys like Annulment Proof should be talking about this stuff. That's not cool. That's going to step on some toes. That's not going to help anyone feel better, is it? Sorry, because what really is bad is what's happening behind the scenes. Sorry to all you love-based marriage enthusiasts. Now, continuing. Thus, it usually insists that the Catholic comply with civil laws. Yeah. Okay. The church defers to authority of the state on the merely civil effects. Here's more crazy wordsmithing, gaslighting, freaky weirdness in our green Bible, in our green 2000 commentary Bible, okay? More freakiness right here. Check it out what they say. What are the merely civil effects of marriage? Anyone? What do you think those are? What are the merely civil effects? Let's read what it says. The church defers to the authority of the state over the merely civil effects. Well, naturally it would, because they're just civil. They're just merely civil. They're not spiritual, so the state gets those, right? What are they? What does it say? These merely civil effects are those that do not necessarily flow from the essence of marriage, such as conjugal rights and obligations, the unity and indissolubility of the bond, and legitimacy of children, and the mutual rights and responsibilities of parents and children. What did I just read? I just read that the merely civil effects are conjugal rights, indissolubility and unity of the bond, and the mutual rights and responsibilities of parents and children, custody and all that. So this is what I just read, but that's 180 degrees of what the truth is and what they actually mean. It's written super weird so that you read it quickly and go, oh, civil effects, children, okay, fine. Those are civil effects. No. The merely civil effects do not necessarily flow from the essence. Now, the essence of marriage is conjugal rights, exclusivity and permanence, legitimacy of children, the mutual rights and responsibilities of parents and children. Yes. Yeah, like the right to educate your children and all that. Okay. The merely civil effects are those which fall within the proper competence of the state. Tax status. Got it? That's the civil effect. Other obligations and privilege based on marital status. So essentially it's tax status. That's what it is. That's basically it. They're trying to save as much face as possible with this crazy, weirdly worded thing. What they're basically saying is the kids belong to the church and your tax status belongs to the state. And they do exactly the opposite. They say it all belongs to the state. Your kids belong to the state. As proof, we just looked at the Phoenix website. What did it say? Your kids belong to the state, and we don't want the civil authorities to be offended at us, so we're going to sacrifice your kids to the state. I'll show you one other thing really quick. I'll put a link to this in the show notes as well. Here's a quote. Children are being massacred in our courts of law. Now, who would say something like that? Where are we talking about? Where did we get this information? What? Children are being massacred in our courts of law. The tribunal, the Catholic Tribunal of 1955, Archdiocese of Chicago. The opposite is being said by the Phoenix Tribunal today. And they're saying, hey, we don't want to offend the civil authorities. No, heavens, no. Heavens to gimbals, not the civil authorities. We want to make nice with them. We'll feed them. We will feed them your children so that they don't get upset. Okay, to the God of conjugal act worship via NFP, marriage is love, will feed your kids to the state. But back in 1955, before that really got going, they said your kids are getting massacred in our courts of law. Even when they had fault-based divorce, they're still getting massacred because the innocent spouse wasn't getting the kids. Okay, so this is why everything was a separation court. Before the divorce, permitting a divorce, the judge had to decide, and it was binding in conscience. If you didn't do what the judge says, as in move back together, you're out. You lose your right to receive the sacraments. Then you join the people in hell that we saw earlier, which you don't want. It's not worth it. Okay. So the separation courts. This is like I said, the dirty little secret, the tight-lipped secret that they won't get into. And they talk about Third Council of Baltimore here, okay? Ecclesiastical judge will decide. There's the article right there where all this came from. DePaul University, Catholic. Chicago was like big. And then here's some clips in the newspaper. Marriage separation court. Marriage separation court. These are all the people who used to work in the marriage separation court. Look at this. This guy here in Chicago, marriage separation court. All those annulments would not happen if you just took them to separation court and everyone had to get it straight. Number one, there is no divorce ever. There's just separation. You're married for life. Unless you can prove there's something's invalid, but typically there's going to be no reason for even the separation. So they say, you knuckleheads convalidate or get back. No, we're not doing any annulment. But now everything's no fault and no one's married if they don't want to be, because you just got to show that there wasn't enough love in the room. This is before that love, it was any love base. It was all justice based back here. It was the right over the body for acts. Done many videos on that. Any questions on that? Let me know. Let's go back to our notes. 1, 2, 3, and figure out where we were. Okay, tax status. Yeah. Okay, so page 1258 of our green Bible. Here's more weird wordsmithing, more gaslighting, more taking what they mean to say and totally turning it backwards so you have a hard time figuring it out, but we're going to slow it down and get it right. Unlike the 19th, when you read it, you're saying the exact opposite of what you're trying to say. So you have to be careful when you read this. This is why they've buried this stuff. This is Catholic truth that's getting buried, but they have to admit it. Just like CCC 2384, they have to admit marriage is a grave offense against what? Against what? Nature. It's objective because it claims to break the contract. Them's fighting words. You can't say that anymore because it's a covenant of love with no fault. That's how we act in practice. And we separate the contract from the sacrament and give the contract to the state. Total heresy. Every U.S. bishop is a material heretic. You can't do that, but we're doing it. So how do we get by it? We make it weird and in the small print in our green Catholic Bible, the 2000 Commentary on Canon Law, page 1258. Unlike the 1917 code, the revised code, 1983 code, does explicitly require that for consummation to occur. Oh, this is good. Wow, we're going to talk all about consummating on a human way. And all this, they have to redefine consummation too. Okay, require for consummation to occur, the act of sexual intercourse must be performed in a human manner. So that is correct. That's different than the 1917 code. Remember I told you in the beginning where I'm going to show you where these guys admit they have redefined marriage, which is illegal, violation of nature, can't do it. They're going to admit it in writing that they've redefined marriage, because when you redefine consummation, you're redefining marriage, because what goes up must come down. What you consent to must get consummated. Everything you consent to must get consummated. Everything. Otherwise, you can't consummate what you can't consent to what you cannot consummate. So what is consummation? You thought you knew, didn't you? You don't know. Timothy Gordon, pay attention here. We're going to name you by name in a minute. 1917 code, the revised code. Okay, require that for consummation to occur, the act of sexual intercourse must be performed in a human fashion. It didn't used to have to be in a human fashion. It could just be in a natural fashion, like the way everybody else. Now it's got to be in a human fashion. Well, what the dickens is a human fashion conjugal act, boy? Glad you asked. It must be natural and what does it say? What? Natural and voluntary. Woohoo! It's got to be voluntary. See the commentary on Canon 1142. Okay, we're going to go there and we're going to see that commentary on 1142 because it has to be natural. It used to only have to be natural. Your conjugal act before 1965 only had to be natural. But guess what? New constitution of marriage, new definition of marriage. It has to be voluntary now. That's why Timothy Gordon keeps saying it's got to be procreative and unitive. This is code for the new definition of marriage. No longer is it just natural. It has to be voluntary. And if it's not voluntary, we're going to say it's not natural. Therefore, nature is whatever you think voluntary is. And what does Timothy Gordon think voluntary is? Everyone's having a good time here. Everyone's having a good time here. It's so goofed up what's going on. So we have to try to get the memo out. As I've said 100 times, Timothy Gordon is the best out there describing the patriarchy, the rights of marriage and stuff like that. And he's absolutely shooting himself in the foot, both feet actually, when he says the conjugal act must be unitive. He's taking the modernist witchcraft and embracing it. No voluntary nothing. You cannot change the definition of marriage. But wait, there's more. So let's go to the commentary on 1142, okay? Because they said here on page 1258. So the commentary on 1142, which is page 1363, and you guys can go to your green Bible and figure it out. And I'll also, you can download the commentary on this thing. You can get the commentary yourself. Let me know if you need any help on that. I can share it with you. Read it all for yourself. The notion of consummation. Okay, consummation now is a notion. No, it's a legal thing. It's not even a notion. The sacramental marriage is considered, oh boy. It's 10:01, you guys. I got to go get tires. I really do. I'm on a roll. This is fun to talk about. I'm going to hang it up for tonight. I'll be back like tomorrow and we'll keep going. We'll get into our consummation. That's right, my man, my woman. They don't care. They don't care about what's right or the tradition or the church like this because they want what they want. So how do we get that? It's the end justify the means, which is why we can't go to these annulment weddings because they are trying to bring good out of evil, right? I just read a cool article by Bishop Barron. It goes exactly what we're talking about. The good news is I almost deleted the entire first half of this video, but it turns out the power outage didn't get it, which is really cool. So I'm not going to redo that, but I got plenty to talk about. Let me push pause. We're going to pick up where we left off and I'm going to add some new things. You got to be careful with me. If you give me too much time, I'm going to make it 5 hours, but it's worth listening to. I think what I have going on here, even though it's going to take a long video, you can, like I said, people like it because they can push play and let it go for 5 hours and watch it in chunks rather than, having to keep reloading stuff. All right, hold on. Now, I know we were going to talk about the new definition of consummation. That's where we left off. But I stumbled across this Bishop Barron article and I got a few highlights, so I want to go through it, all right? It's good. Why we can't do evil even though good may come of it, right? Everyone knows that, but this is what's up with the annulment weddings by and large, okay? What does he say? Where do we get this? It's all from the Bible. That's right. This legal axiom. This is why we can't do these annulments. Weddings, that is. Listen, Romans 3:8. I think I've already talked about that earlier in this video. We should never do evil that good may come of it. That's right. That's right. Now, but most of us who do, he says, if you delight in it, if you're truly sadistic, it's beast-like. And that's some narcissists are like that. They get into making other people feel bad because they feel bad inside, so they make other people feel bad too. That is beast-like. Okay, I don't know if there's a lot of people like that, but there are some. Most of us who do a bad thing typically can find, oh shoot, just a second. That's my son calling. Hold on. Alrighty then. Sorted out, Sonny boy, of course. We do what we can. They named it after that one guy, but that's what it is, sadism. Okay, most of us who do a bad thing typically can find justification for our behavior through appealing to a good end that we were hoping through to achieve our, yes, oh yeah, sure, everyone does it, I guess, right? I'm not really proud of what I did. Sounds familiar, but I'll say to myself, at least it brought some positive consequences. Yeah, that's what's going on with these annulment people. God, I really, I'm sorry about the divorce and everything, but it's going to bring out, we've just really moved on now, and it's really a lot of growth, and we can get remarriage and all this other stuff. Okay, so what does the Council of Trent say about this very topic? If marriage were dissoluble by divorce, married persons could scarcely ever want causes of dissension, which the old enemy of peace, whoever that could be, and chastity would never fail to throw in their way. Whereas the faithful reflect within themselves that even separated as to bed and board, they are still bound by the tie of marriage, and that all hope of a wedding second wife is cut off. They become slower to anger and dissensions. Obviously, if the incentive isn't there, you're going to pray for grace, not pray for a divorce and annulment. However, when you throw annulment out there, maybe my marriage is invalid, and everyone's like okay with divorce, what do you think's going to happen? You create these narcissists. You create them because you roll out the red carpet, and then they have to kind of become an entitled narcissist in order to go there. You've got to do that, okay? It's just like if you start inviting people to use drugs, they're going to turn into drug addicts, and they become hardened drug addicts because that's what they have to, in order to stay there, they got to become that way. I've heard it said that like only 2% of the population are narcissists. However, I think when you start inviting it with open marriage like this, that population climbs and people just assume the position, you might say. All hope of a wedding second wife is cut off. They become slow to anger and dissension. And if this is cool, and if sometimes separated, feeling the regrets of separation insufferable, they are easily reconciled to their fellowship of living through intervention of friends. Hello, friends. Now the new friends are going to go to the new wedding and say, we're going to try to keep y'all together instead of going back. This is how evil this annulment thing is. It's like having an abortion party. We're not going to send you to Project Rachel. We're going to send you to Feminism 101. You just never look back. This is evil stuff. Let's continue with Bishop Barron. But the church, following the prompt of St. Paul, has consistently frowned on this manner of thinking, precisely because it opens the door to moral chaos. Yes. Hello. That's why they asked in the Dubia brothers to Pope Francis, is there such thing as objective sin? Not anymore, really. Okay. Moral chaos. Look around you. Do we have moral chaos in marriage today? Yep. Because we can't define what the object of consent is. It's some sort of mutual togetherness thing. We don't know what that is. It turns out to become the tyranny of the will of one person. That's what it turns out to be. So do as I say, or you're not doing marriage. That's what it turns out to be. Concomitantly, it has recognized certain acts, such as the church, that is, such as slavery, adultery, sexual abuse of children, the direct killing of innocent, divorce, etc., as intrinsically evil. I had to put that divorce in there because Bishop Barron neglected to do that. Divorce is intrinsic evil. CCC 2384. It's a grave offense against nature because the person who divorces lays claim to the contract. They say, I submitted to this contract, but now I am taking I'm reneging. I'm taking back my power. Nobody's allowed. This is why marriage is till death. You can't do that. So that's why it's intrinsically evil to divorce. You can go ask the bishop to suspend the terms while you work stuff out, but that's it. That's all that's all you can do. Let's keep going. Which is to say, incapable of being justified through appeal to motivation, extenuating circumstances, or consequences. So far, so obvious. But if divorce is tolerable, then we can look into motivations, circumstances, and consequences. And if marriage validity is based on how I feel, then all these things do matter. And so, because if it's good of the spouses, good is undefined, and it's how I feel. So marriage becomes no longer permanent. And if it's no longer permanent, the ends justify the means. And this is why I'm saying to not go to these annulment weddings, because you are saying marriage isn't permanent, divorce isn't a sin. This is why I'm here celebrating your new thing, because marriage is not permanent, divorce isn't a sin. That's a lie. But this principle has come to mind recently, not in regard to the moral acts of individuals, okay, but he's talking about O.J. Simpson, the O.J. Simpsonization of our legal thinking. In other words, everyone knows O.J. was guilty as heck. However, the man has been keeping the black down for so long that we're just trying to tip the scales back. All right. So therefore, the ends justify the means. Yeah, everyone knows he's guilty, but we're going to let him off because he deserves it. Same with these. Okay, look, Cardinal George Pell, same deal. all these priests are abusing kids. Therefore, we're going to make an example out of George Pell. We're going to get him, Cardinal Pell. And so he eventually, right before he died, they let him out of jail, and that was it. Same thing with the annulments. We don't like this marital debt. We don't like having, the feminism doesn't want, I have to have 17 kids and submit to my husband. No, thank you. That's not love. Da, 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 da. So now and if you find something where one wife considers it abuse, therefore we are justifying doing evil so that good may come of it. But once you chip away at if you say, murder isn't always evil, or abuse of children by priests isn't always evil, then you can't really say what's right and wrong. Okay. So once you start once you make the definition of marriage subjective, you can't say what's right and wrong. Boom, it's off to the races. And now we have annulment weddings all over the place, and marriage is a joke. What else we got on Bishop Barron? The prevalence of this moral consequentialism in our society is supremely dangerous. That's right. Because now, if you have no fault car ownership, anyone can take your car or your mortgage or whatever you got. It is supremely dangerous. That is for sure. No civilization, because morals are what I say they are. Truth is what I say they are. There is no objective reality. I'm sorry, sir, 25 miles an hour isn't what you think it means. You have to leave me alone now while I drive 125 miles an hour. For the moment we say that evil can be done for the sake of good, we have effectively denied that there are any intrinsically evil acts. Boom, presto, guaranteed. Go, Bishop Barron, go. You totally nailed it. Exactly. What is going on with these annulment weddings? It's evil done for the sake of good, because somebody got a divorce and they need to, I think maybe all of them, like somebody got a divorce and that person needs to reconcile the marriage rather than cut it off. And this new wedding is going to cut it off. All these cases, we got to, there's always a weird exception out there, and I want to hear about them in the comments, but I think it's 99 out of 100. They're all involving a divorce, and somebody is escaping. They're not honoring their vows. They're doing a divorce, which is intrinsic evil. And now we're going to say, yeah, that intrinsic evil happened. But rather than rectifying that or living with the consequences, we're going to deny the consequences, and we're gonna, now if you can fog a mirror, you can get the annulment. So we're all going to play pretend here. We have effectively denied that there are any intrinsically evil acts. And the moment we do that, our intellectual support for our moral system gives way automatically. This is so good. It's just totally right. I've been saying kind of the same thing. Why do you think we have no canon 915 anymore? There's no objective sin. There's no manifest sin. There's no public sin. There can only be notorious. Everyone obviously knows Joe Biden's a bad dude, can't go to communion. But as far as intellectual support for sin, what it is, we can't judge. We don't know. Adultery, Morris Letizia. A divorce, well, can't judge. It's just, no, we can't judge that. Annulment, hey, trust the church. Okay, those guys are just basing their stuff on the subjective definition of love or something. So anyone can get that annulment as long as you try hard enough. In tough circumstances, if you don't get the evidence or whatever, where there's a will, there's a way to get an annulment. There is. You might have to go diocese shopping or whatever, but you can do it if you really want, because the tribunals are full of divorce ideologues they grant annulments. It's what they do. And if they stop, they'd have to quit out of guilt. So they keep going because they've just done so many of them, and they can't say what I did in their past was wrong. So they have to keep doubling and tripling down. Okay. Then the Furies come. That means public unrest. A very instructive example of this principle is the terror that followed the French Revolution. Yeah, French Revolution, kill the king, no kings, unmoored from truth and reality. Anything's possible. NFP, anything's possible. Whatever nature is what I think it is. I'm discerning it, So now we got all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world of calling it nature, right? If innocence died alongside the guilty, so be it, for it served the building of a new society. If we have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, so be it. If we have to sacrifice several families and kids to grant these annulments, so be it. What if we made some mistakes on our annulments, or what if actually we should have said no annulment because you've illegally divorced, so we're not going to grant you a favor of an annulment. Nah, we want a new society. What is that new Novus Ordo society? It is everything is between me and God. Cafeteria Catholics go to heaven. That's it. And so we need to, and marriage is what messes a lot of people up on that. So what do? We just keep throwing annulments at the problem, and we keep giving communion to anyone who asks, even if they're divorced. Because divorce isn't a sin, it's a private matter. It's in between you and God, right? New society. Plus, got a little homo going on the side or whatever you want. Fornication, hey, private. It's all, and so we can't really judge this stuff. That's the new society. You destroy marriage. It's as I said, it's the new paganism, the worship of the conjugal act. That's it. I believe it is no exaggeration to say that Western society has yet fully to recover from the moral chaos visited upon it by the lethal consequentialism of that time. You think so? Fully to recover? Ha! We have evolved into NFP. Nothing, Bishop Barron, is going to recover until you get rid of the NFP, because law, objectivity is out. If NFP is nature, there's no marriage law. Therefore, you can't have a society when the building block of society is lawless. Okay, yeah, never do evil that good might come of it. Going to this wedding is doing evil that good might come of it. Going to, like, my wife's going to get married to this dude the end of May, something. He should go back to his family. She should go back to her family. Hello? Instead of, like, following the devil into this new thing, which is going to crash and burn anyway. There ain't no escaping nature and the consequences. So that's why those kids are there. I could keep going, but we got to work on our consummation here, right? The notion of consummation. This is that's what we're going to do. The commentary on Canon 1142 from 1363 of the Green Bible, the 2000 commentary. A sacramental marriage is considered to have been consummated. Did you know consummation, by the way, has been redefined? That's what we're getting at. And why does this matter? Because if you've redefined consummation, then you redefine consent, and that's how they get these annulments going. You can't redefine the object of consent without redefining its consummation too. It's like, if you're going to tweak the front end, you're going to tweak the back end. It's how what comes up must come down. So we have to redefine the up and the down, aka new definition of consummation. Now, it's been consummated when the people have done the conjugal act in a human fashion. Human fashion, does that sound objective? Does that sound like something that has to do with circumstances or something subjective, perhaps? Yeah, it does. A conjugal act which is suitable for itself for the procreation of offspring, to which marriage is ordered by its nature. Okay, so they took what sounded normal, traditional, what marriage has always been, but they throw a human fashion in front of it. It's the same thing. It's like good of the spouses and procreation. Human fashion and procreation. The marriage can be consummated only after it has become ratified by legitimate manifestation of consent by the spouses. Did you see that? So it's only consummated after manifest consent. Manifest consent of what? Your marriage vows on the altar. Okay? That's what it is. Legitimate. So marriage has been consummated only after it has become ratified by legitimate manifestation. The wedding, the people, the white dress, the black tux, all that. That's the manifestation of consent. There is no further consent needed because it's already been manifested and done at the wedding. This is why I say marriage is one-time consent, not consent every time. But hold on, we're going to keep going, and they're going to contradict themselves with this. This is why I got to get into this. No one else is going to do it. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. According to traditional Catholic doctrine, there's no such traditional canonical doctrine. There's no such thing as traditional canonical doctrine. Doctrine exists. It's not traditional. It's not liberal. It's nothing. It's doctrine. It's what it is. But they're trying to say, hey, we have traditional canonical doctrine and we have contemporary canonical doctrine. And it's all cool because it's canonical, right? It all ebbs and flows and changes. You know, like Stanford Nutting in his Church of Jello, the 10 Commandments are written in Jello, the kind that hasn't set yet. Like that. And we try to match the flow. The conjugal act consummates okay. According to this stupid term, traditional contract, in other words, according to the old folks, remember, we don't care about the old folks. The conjugal act that consummates a marriage requires a man's penis, man's vagina, at least partially deposit semen in the vagina. All right, so basically nature, right? That's traditional. We're talking nuts and bolts plus seed. That's what it takes. But now with NFP, it don't take that no more. Same with vasectomy. That's why they had to allow the vasectomy. You don't need the you don't need the seed. Often the failure to consummate the marriage is the result of impotence. I want to However, it can also result. Thus, marriage is not consummated by intercourse. Okay, consummation in a human manner. Yeah, so they're saying you can't consummate with contraception. That's true. You can't consummate with a vasectomy. You can't. According to traditional canonical doctrine. Oh yeah, that you can change canonical doctrine, but you can't change church doctrine. No, it's church doctrine, man. But because procreation alone, procreation is primary. Procreation is the essence. When you make subjective good the essence, traditional Catholic canonical doctrine is gone, and you don't have to have the seed. You can just, it's all, as long as it's about love first, because love wins. That's all you need now. That's why you can contracept, you can do NFP, you can do vasectomy. Now, consummation in a human manner. We're going to talk about that. This is in the Green Book commentary. Cool. The conjugal act which consummates a marriage must be performed in a human fashion. Okay? It must. In order to be legal, a conjugal act which consummates marriage. If you don't do it in a human fashion, did you know that you weren't doing your conjugal act in a human fashion? Did you know that ever since marriage was being defined, nobody knew about the human fashion thing? We just didn't know. But we sure do now. Our new psychology. We know so much more about what a human fashion conjugal act is, whereas before we had no idea. We just didn't know. And now we do, so we're going to put it in the law. Right? What is that? That's called, it's legalized feminism. That's called bye-bye marital debt. That's all this is. I'm getting there. Let's listen. They're saying the quiet part out loud here. The precise determination of what constitutes sexual relations in a human fashion will have to be developed gradually. Really? So we're going to ask you to sign in blood on the dotted line for marriage, but we're not going to tell you legally what you've done until later. And we may never tell you because we can't. Because how high is high? Where does outer space end? Okay, we don't know. We're going to develop that canonically? No. But we're telling all these kids, consent to something that we aren't defining, never can, and won't. Because we can't. But we're going to say we're going to define this eventually, gradually. No. And even Cardinal Burke says there is no accepted description of the object of consent. said it in his own words. I got the recording. I've said it to you before. I was up in Madison, Wisconsin in 2003 or whatever it was. 2011, maybe. So they're going to, so these super smart guys at the Roman Rota are going to come up with a legal definition of in a human fashion. And it can't be done because the only operating legal definition of in a human fashion is mutual consent. That's the only definition. And mutual consent was already given manifest in front of everybody out loud in a microphone on the altar. But after that, it's all rape because there was no manifest consent. And you have to have this new consent now because it's got to be in a human way. No more instinct. Oh, by the way, part of this feminist NFP law stuff is all based on that. And everyone says this. Everyone in Catholic Inc. will say this, that marriage is more than, it's human nature. It's not just animal nature. It's not just for animals. Humans are different. And we have to consider the human element and all this kind of stuff and this love stuff. And St. Thomas Aquinas rejects that. That is not true. Otherwise, we are now in the area of, again, non-object, subjectivity. So all these guys, from anyone who's the father of gay marriage, Dietrich von Hildebrand, he's the one who kind of first started saying that it's marriage, the marriage act is different than the act of animals in essence. No, it's not. It may be different in sign, but not in its essence. It's like eating. If a lion eats something and you eat something, in essence, you're doing the same exact thing. There may be other symbolisms, what you get is Bible talks about food and things like that and the signs and the significances of it. But eating something is the same, whether it's done by a zebra or a person. Reproducing is the same, whether it's done by a person or a gazelle. You can quote me on that one. Now, let's keep going. Now, here we go. However, it is already clear. Dig this. It's already clear. In order to effect the consummation of a marriage, the conjugal act must be a human and voluntary act. Woohoo! Hello. I thought we had marital debt. I thought the object was right over the body for acts suitable for the generation of children. The permanent and exclusive right over the body for acts. Marriage permanence, marriage exclusivity. But now, no, it's voluntary. Oh, that reminds me of a video I want to show you in just a minute. I was going to use this in a separate video, but it was on my mind, so we'll just try it right now. This lady comes up with a pretty good opening line on her video, and it's exactly what we're talking about, how when you get rid of marital debt, you destroy permanence. Listen to what she says.
In a marriage, you can't say, I'm not having sex anymore, without also saying, you're not having sex anymore. Marriage is a sexually exclusive relationship, so the promise not to have sex outside it carries an implicit agreement that sex will happen within it.
She's basically doing the logical G.K. Chesterton math. That's right, because if it's exclusive, you have a right to it in the marriage. But if you don't have a right to it, it's not exclusive. That's her point. It's one or the other. And this is why everyone says, hey, I'm not going to do this in my marriage. Therefore, I'm going to get out of this marriage and I'll get a new marriage. See what I'm saying? It becomes serial monogamy. She's right. Let's keep going. But she's just a secular person doing the logical math here. That's what she's doing.
Therefore, any change to that arrangement isn't one person's decision to make.
That's right. It has to be consensual, as far both people have to consent if there's a change to the contract. However, if the contract is consensual in its basis, then any change. So in other words, if you want marital debt, you have to consent to it after the fact. So the thing is flipped. Marital debt is the default, but feminist new marriage is no, mutual consent is the default. That's the issue. That's the problem. But this lady is saying, okay, if you have that, then basically you have no permanence and you have no exclusivity, because if you have no right to the conjugal act, you have no right to permanence or exclusivity, and that's exactly what I've been saying all along.
Belongs to both of you. So while anyone has a right to opt out of sex, at some point opting out of sex in your marriage starts to look a lot like opting out of the marriage itself. In a marriage,
that's right, it starts to look a lot like opting out. Hello, exactly right, because that's what it is. You have, once you've got the debt, you have to do it, so you're opting out, and it looks like opting out of the marriage. No, it basically becomes opting out of the marriage. And once you do that, things downwardly spiral. Then that just allows for the separation, and it's all subjective now. I wish Bishop Barron could watch some of this. I'd like to never get to that guy, but you never know. Maybe I'll see him in an elevator someday. Then again, I don't go anywhere. Let's go back to our notes. Hang on. All right, we were talking about stuff in a human manner. Yes. Okay, it must be a voluntary act. Conjugal act must, be voluntary. So they are saying that marital debt must be dissolved. There is no marital debt. There's only perpetual consent required. Every time is consent, because that's we have redefined marriage. We have taken procreation, objectivity, and made it a secondary purpose, a non-essential purpose. What is essential is this mutual love business, okay? And once you have that, which you can't define, then that means she's in charge. The feminist is in charge because it's all voluntary. And typically it's just like it's 75% wife who divorces, it's 75% of the wife who says no marital debt. Once you start doing that, it's bye-bye marriage. It's like the lady in the red said, you're acting like you're opting out of the marriage. Yes, you are. And that's exactly what happens. This NFP stuff is killer. A lot of people know it, but not as many people articulate it. So I'm trying to do that. Then people who can also add to what I'm saying in the comments. Sorry, this video is so long. Get used to it. Again, I don't care if it takes a month to watch it. Go ahead and then just, instead of making, it takes so much effort just to get one of these off the ground and get it up on YouTube. You know how it is you're busy. I just make them in big chunks. It is sufficient. Okay. For a marriage to consummate, it is necessary to be a human act, a human act on the part of both spouses. What does that mean? How do you do a human act with one spouse but not on the other? That means both. It is sufficient to be virtually voluntary. In other words, what the virtually voluntary means, you don't have to have manifest consent. Hear the words, okay, tonight is good. No, I'm cool with it. Mark me down as legally consenting, as long as it's like unwritten or whatever. Oh, these guys. So they are overturning and getting rid of 1 Corinthians 7:4, marital debt, gone by, see ya later. It's all about love has entered the room now, okay? And what you get is the stuff Bishop Barron said. We can do evil that good may come of it. People know divorce is evil, but you know what? We don't know for sure, and we can't judge. So everyone gets a little confused, and my own wife is like, that was nuts what I did with the divorce. Is she redoing it? No. Because is she fixing it? No. Because she doesn't want to, because it's going to be hard. Who wants to talk to someone like me? Raise your hand. Not me. I'm tough. I'm toxic, man. So she's going to run and find some other like lightweight. Oh, brother. Because it's easier. Nothing like we don't need. You go ahead and rewatch that part earlier about the souls in hell. You've got to get your nature straight, your state in life correct. Ask for grace. We need to retake marriage back in-house, because even though Bishop Barron talks a good game, he's the enemy. He's heresy because he says you can separate the contract from the sacrament. We must take marriage back in-house. Everyone who's going to get married has to own marriage themselves, has to define it correctly per the church, and create their own society, because the society out there is like the same society that burned Joan of Arc at the stake. That's the Catholics we have who are going to support you in marriage. The same guys who burned Joan of Arc. They got weird motivations. They're trying to do crazy stuff. You can't. You don't want to mess with those guys. So you won't need to if you get it right up front. Okay. Thus, the true consummation does not result from sexual acts performed as a result of physical or... Okay, this is good. True consummation. What is true consummation? What is false consummation? What is legal consummation? What is plain old consummation? I guess you need to know that, don't you? We need to talk about true consummation, because that's what John Paul II talks about. True love, true this, true that. Truly, truly, truly. Does not result from sexual acts performed as a result of physical or moral violence. If you give moral violence to consummation, it's not true consummation. What is moral violence that deprives a spouse of his or her freedom? Are you saying you make a moral argument? You owe me the marital debt because you promised? It's right there in the Bible. Stuff like that. Uh-oh. Moral violence. What is moral violence? It's called basically, they're saying, look, if you're a patriarch asserting Catholic teaching, forget it. You can't consummate. No moral violence. You have to, the only moral violence that's allowed is depriving. The only moral violence that's allowed is the tyranny of freedom. I'm going to consent to not consenting. I'm going to consent to withholding whatever consent I want when I want. That's my consent. I promise to never promise. I promise to not consent. And I'm doing moral violence to you that way. And you're going to like it. It's all you got. And if you don't like it, you better figure out a way to speak my love language or do as I say. And this creates, I'll tell you what this does. This creates narcissism, because they keep doubling and tripling down on this. And then they say, I need my freedom. I want my freedom. I have the freedom to say no, da, 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 da. And if that's true, I'm going to become this narcissist type because I am entitled to this. And it kind of feeds on itself, just like people who start stealing stuff or start drug addicts. They just go and they get more and more and more.
I'm not cool. I'm not smart. I'm not funny. I'm not cool. I'm not hot. I'm not edgy. I'm not brave. I'm just a narcissist. I'm no rebel. I'm an arsonist. I'm not well. I ain't a pharmacist. I'm no exception. I'm part of it. Yeah.
I'm no exception. I'm part of it. See, it's like I was saying. I gotta turn this dude down somehow. Oh, stop it, you. Stop at you. Got it. I'm no exception. I'm part of it. Cool. Yeah. That narcissist thing, it mainstreams the narcissism. Like I said, it used to be kind of a 2% gig, but now, if marriage is effectively narcissism, I'm entitled to say no. That's my right. It just creates it. And now you're saying I can divorce, I can leave this marriage, I can do all this stuff because I'm entitled. It's right there in the description. Total gift of self. And I have a right to the total gift of self, which means I have a legal right to do moral violence on you, saying my right says you don't have the right. Dig it? Is that clear? Okay, good. Anyway, this guy's funny. Now, let's go back to our notes. Hang on. Doodly do. Whoops. Voluntary act. Sufficient to be virtually voluntary. Moral violence. Woohoo! Yes, that was a great point. Anyway, so they're saying the quiet part out loud. They are saying in their commentary on this canon, 1142, what is consummation? What is in a human act? They're saying marital debt is out. Out. O-U-T, out. Just like the star-bellied Sneetches. Does not impede consummation. However, the use of drugs, alcohol, or after does not impede consummation if the person under the influence had previously consented to this act. Wait a minute. I thought consent happened at the wedding. Right here. Manifestation of consent. Marriage can only be consummated after has been legitimate manifestation of consent. But then it takes even more consent. Because if you're on drugs, but you consented previously, wait a minute, I thought you consented at the wedding. No, you consented in the hallway like 2 hours ago. And then you I don't know, man, ate a bunch of drugs. Now you can't consent. Man. Hang on, I'm widen this up a little. Let me make this a little bit smaller so it'll work easier. Just a minute. There. Okay, better. Suggestions of a broader, hold on. Suggestions of a broader notion of consummation. That is the title that's the heading of this next. Suggestions. We need to suggest a broader notion. Dude, you need to broaden the notion. Let's suggest a broader notion. Does that sound like a precise legal term that you want to put your life on the line for? A suggestion of a broader notion? Dog, get out of here. I'm telling you, these guys are enemies. These bishops that you have are enemies of marriage. You have to wake up and own your marriage yourself. Define it and protect yourself from letting these guys get anywhere near it because they will feed you to the state. It's sick. And we're going to give the annulment an endorsement. We want this new union to work great. No, it's built on evil. That's why we can't go to it. Okay, the significance of the conjugal act by which a sacramental marriage is consummated was suggested in the conciliar pastoral constitution. Gaudium it says, yes, the significance of the conjugal act by which a sacramental marriage is consummated was suggested in. Okay, we're going to suggest about significances. You can suggest about significances all you want. What it's about is nature and purpose. That's the battleground, because a vasectomy conjugal act does not violate significance, does it? It looks the same and all that. It's sign Christ in his church, unify as long as you're living together, right? A NFP act does not violate significance, does it? No. Your nuts and bolts coming together. What does violate nature, though, is what we can't do. But nature is no longer an issue. Nature is not the thing anymore. Love is the thing. A human act is the thing, not just a reproductive act. Got to have it human first. Consent comes before nature, doesn't it? Like I said, used to consent just at the altar. Now it's consent to do moral violence via consent in the future. Okay? So, yeah. It's almost like the mortgage company can just come and say, hey, we're going to kick you out this month because of how we feel. And there you go. It's like but it's not moral violence because you consented when you sign your mortgage. No, it's got to be signed every day now. And if we don't want to sign it, we won't. It's like the new mortgage is a love-based mortgage. So every day is a signing. And if one party wants out at any time, no problem. That's how it goes. And they get the house, or they don't have to pay them, or whatever. So people have financial incentives also, like the bank opts out of the mortgage and takes the house back. Or if it's not financially expedient for them, they won't do that. Or the spouse can say, oh, I'm out backing out of the mortgage and I'm taking the house. Housing market crumbles. Nobody can buy anything anymore. Okay. So Gaudium et Spes made some suggestions. Okay, they say, check this out, a truly human performance of these acts. Again, we're into what's truly human, not just kind of human or superhuman or barely human or whatever. Truly human performance of these acts fosters the self-giving they signify. Oh, you have to signify self-giving. Really? How do you signify self-giving? Again, when a priest consecrates the Eucharist, we don't know what's going on in his mind. We really don't. as long as he says the words and does the consecration, it's valid, it's legal, all that. So they're saying, no, we need to this in order to be truly human in a human manner, that it needs to signify self-giving and enrich the spouses in joy and gratitude. How many legal measures of enrichment of joy would you need? And how about gratitude? 73.9 measures of gratitude in this particular conjugal act? Anyone? Or it's not truly human? That's why they can't define it, never will define it, can't be defined. But it sounds so groovy. Christopher West is just like been bonked on the head and he's walking around in a daze, talking all about it. Despite the antiquity of the tradition that a marriage is consummated and thereby rendered extrinsically indissoluble by the initial act of sexual intercourse by the spouses. Did you notice that? Antiquity of the tradition. So really old traditions can change, or no, it's called nature, doctrine. You can't change that. But they're saying this is an old tradition, even though it's an old tradition. Okay. Despite all the old guys, we don't care about the old guys. Consummated. Some have argued that the personalist theology of marriage introduced by Vatican II requires a broadening of the definition of consummation. Really? Some have argued, because of personalist theology of marriage introduced by requires a broadening of the definition of marriage, of consummation. Yeah, I guess it would, because if what goes up must come down. If this is the object of marriage, whatever. Let's just say this is our object of marriage. I throw it up in the air, it's coming down. This thing. That's it. You have consummated. You've consented, you consummate. Same thing. But now you're consenting to this in a deeply personal and meaningful way. Okay? Right? And that can't be defined. So now you're not consenting. You're consenting to, again, this moral tyranny, this moral violence. You are consenting to someone being able to give you moral violence. I'm not going to honor the vows because I've decided no, and it's my right. Call me a narcissist if you want. I need a pharmacist, right? It's I'm not. What is the line he used? Hang on, let me look for it again. I'm no exception. I'm part of it. Yeah, so it's all mainstream now. When the structure, you hear about institutionalized racism, this is institutionalized adultery. That's all we have going on. So when the structure is oriented toward get out of marriage, no problem, get rewarded, get a new, you are no longer, it's the narcissism wagon is laid out and a lot of people take it and then they have to become that. And then they realize this entitlement thing just takes over. Once you realize, yeah, I can, I don't know, kill a few neighbors and take their stuff and it's cool. Now you become a criminal, man. So once you start getting into this, I can assert my right over the marital contract. You become a marriage criminal and you take that crime to the new level. And now you're going to take someone else's spouse who has a family and they're going to call it an annulment. Now you can go with your new nature. It's super sick. So I'm trying to get the word out to you guys to not go to these annulment weddings because you're affirming others in their divorce sin. That's what you're doing. Rather than acknowledging marriage permanence, it's serial monogamy. That's what you're doing. And enough said on that because I could keep going, but we need to get through our notes. Broadening of consummation. They suggest that a more adequate definition of consummation would include not only the spouse's physical union, but also their existential and spiritual union. That's right. We're going to suggest that it's more adequate. A more adequate definition. We need to include not only the physical union, biology, biology of the body. Whoops, got to redo that. but also their existential and spiritual union. People say, yes, it's a total gift of self, body, mind, and spirit. The way I feel, no definition possible, can't do. So what do they say? This is the commentary on the canon about in a human manner. They're going, look, you guys, we know that Vatican II is suggesting we need a more adequate definition of consummation and talk about existential and spiritual union. Woohoo! The unit of, hello, Timothy Gordon, are you paying attention? Nevertheless, proposals of this kind had no discernible impact on the drafting of the new current law. That is a stretch. I don't think you can say that. You can say discernible is a matter of opinion, I suppose, but it sure had an impact on the practice. Okay, the current law, no, it did have a discernible impact on the. Everyone knows now you have to have good of the spouses. It's not just a physical union anymore. It's got to be good of the spouses. There is, you must have unity. Everyone says it's got to be unity and procreative. Everybody, even Timothy Gordon, the ultimate patriarch, okay, says it must be unitive. The conjugal act must be unitive. Ask Timothy Gordon to define that. He's not going to do it because he can't do it. It's like saying we need to legally define existential and spiritual union. Can't be done, not going to happen. It's not nature, okay? Spiritual union is not nature. And they'll say, oh, it's human nature. Marriage has a natural purpose. Procreation has nothing to do with existential or spiritual union. It's all biology. That's all we can deal with. That's all it's always been. Okay. However, the possibility of a more existential understanding of consummation cannot be precluded. Really? Is that true? It can't be precluded? Why not? Because we are saying that good of the spouses is marriage. That's why we can't preclude it. So we have to be open to developing this further. And you'll never get there. It'll never work. Nothing. You can't redefine the human body legally. You can't do it. That's all they're doing. They're trying. It gets all super freaky weird. You know, all this existential stuff and theosophy and fun things like that. Okay. The internet. Okay, now check this out. Synodality, anyone? Synodality is old news. It's been going on for a really long time. It got started when they started redefining marriage, or trying to, with Hildebrand and all that. But hold on, listen to this. The International Theological Commission. Anyone heard of that before? Maybe you have. There's a bunch of mucky mucks on that commission. It started in 1969. In the name of synodality, and Karl Rodner was on the board there. Okay, so it's just like the USCCB. It's like a big synod thing. So all the popes, and stuff. They're like, hey, we're going to invite a whole bunch of people to kind of, give us a nice study commission so we can try to couch our liberalism and make it look more respectable. So if you look at the guys on the ITC, they're all super mucky muck smarty pants. There's one lady who is an American. I emailed her. She didn't email me back. Anyway, so the ITC has conceded, ladies and gentlemen, that it cannot be excluded that the church can further define the concepts of sacramentality and consummation by explaining them even better. So the ITC, and no one has contradicted this, it can't be excluded. The church can further define consummation. Okay? The church can further define consummation. That means we can further define the legal definition of arm or leg or something, okay? Or baby or procreation. And if that's true, then nature moves, because marriage is an office of nature. Nature is moving, and it's whatever you want it to be. So that the church can present the whole doctrine on indissolubility in a deeper and more precise way. Did you know that the doctrine of indissolubility needs depth and precision. Did you know that till death needs to be defined more precisely because it's not precisely enough? Indissolubility, meaning permanent, meaning exclusivity. Indissolubility, yeah. Exclusivity and permanent. Do you know what cheating on your spouse means? Do you need a deeper and more precise definition of cheating on your spouse? Did you know what that means? You know what I mean? It's like, no, there's a legal definition, you know? Also till death, we know what that means. And then the object of consent, the right over the body for act suitable for generation of children. Basic biology, objectivity. But now when you start saying it's got to be a love thing, you're never going to be able to define it legally. And marriage is gone. It is feminist law where they do what's my new favorite term? Moral violence. It's legal moral violence by feminists. That is the new consent for marriage. It's the legal right to do moral violence. Presumably to your husband, you say no marital debt, and I'm legally. So you become this, and then if one starts to try to point things out, no. This is why I'm making the video, to point out that they're admitting they're going to. I think I'm going to get to the point where we're going to admit we're going to change the definition. Now, okay, commenting on this thesis, Philip so-and-so, then Secretary of the Commission, observed, as we learn more about the way in which the conjugal bond comes to be constituted, as we learn more about the constitution of marriage, what constitutes marriage is what he's saying. We need to learn more about, we did not know what constituted marriage until 1965. Now we're finally starting to uncover what really constitutes marriage. We thought it was permanence, fidelity, and conjugal acts, right over the body. No, it's so much more. The consummation theory of medieval canonists. Do you want to hang out with a bunch of medieval canonists? Not me. These guys look like, no. The consummation theory. It's only a theory, dude. You have your theory. We have our theory. We just have great theories together, and everyone's got their own theory. And it's called nature, and it don't change, y'all. Right? The consummation legal definition, as in what it is, of medieval canonists may well turn out to be too. This is like just more like edging the needle a little bit. So if your consummation theory of medieval canonists may well turn out to be too inadequate to be tenable any longer. Oh no! Guess what? Nature is no longer tenable. Why? Because we want to be homo, we want to not have 17 kids, and we want to get divorced and annulment when we want. You know what that means? Nature is no longer tenable. Of course. And when you start telling trans people you're not trans, they're like, we gonna kill you, because that medieval canonist tradition of yours is it's moral violence, dude. Get your moral violence out of here. I'm going to give my moral violence to you. Someone's moral violence is going to win. Just like Christ says, I come to bring fire on the earth, not everyone getting along. You must do violence to what is wrong. It's just a license to moral violence, man. The new definition. That's why I say, if you know anyone who's getting married, you've got to define it first, because if you don't, you are handing the more willful spouse the right to do everything. Moral violence. That's what you're doing, because in the name of unity or existential and spiritual union and consent. And typically most guys will work for life. Most guys will honor duty. And a lot of women, though, the temptation will be to wear the pants and not have the kids. So the temptation for them is like, hey, I can be a feminist and call it Catholic. Where do I sign? I'm doing that because you know what? All these kids, I'm going to die. My doctor said I'm going to die if I have more kids. Whatever. Okay. According to this theory, marriage is consummated by one act of sexual intercourse, no more, no less. However, no one has yet elaborated on another acceptable theory. Oh, okay. So we're saying, hey, guess what? you know what? All this talk about theory of a new and expanded definition of marriage, but don't worry about it, man. It's not really, no one's yet elaborated. Okay, in practice, the whole thing of marital debt is gonzo out the window. And everybody in practice is doing the new acceptable theory, which is consent every time. You got to have a certain amount of love, or you can do moral violence to your family and shred them. Get the divorce, do moral violence through the divorce, do moral violence through getting an annulment, saying there was not enough love, making love the basis for the marriage. And then you can pursue love with your new marriage, with your new spouse, who's someone else's spouse with kids. What could go wrong, Bishop Barron, with that? You're part of the problem, dude. You're the guy who holds the cards to this thing. Bishop Barron, you could straighten this out, and it would be high profile. If you care to look, if someone could get you the memo, why don't you got to hold your crozier and say no divorce gets out of this diocese unless it comes through me. And if you do, you cannot receive the sacraments. How long did that take to say? That's all he's got to say. Everything changes overnight. People of goodwill that are Catholic will say, I'm not doing the separation. Like it said in Trent, if you give them an opening, they'll take it. Everyone wants out of their marriage when it gets hard. And if you say it's cool, they're going to do it. And then the narcissists take over. And they're not the exception. They become part of it. Like the guy said, the little doggy suit, man. Mainstream narcissism. Mainstream. People don't start out that way, but they're tempted. And then you give them the out. Oh, it's so sick. Page 1258 of the Green Bible. Also, okay, so this is, like, listen how they word this stuff. It's kind of weird, okay? Also, unlike the 1917 Code, the Revised Code has defined the conjugal act by which marriage is consummated as one which is suitable in itself for the procreation of offspring. Yes. The way they word their stuff is confusing, so they make it sound like they're really conservative when they're not. This expression has a long canonical history. In Canon 1081, 2 of the 1970 Code, it was used to specify the perpetual, that's till death, and exclusive, no cheating, right to the body, for which considered the object of matrimonial consent. Did you hear that, kids? The object of matrimonial consent, perpetual and exclusive right to the body. Okay. But they said, unlike the 17 Code, the new code, and then they're like, go on and say it's the same thing. No, listen up. I'm trying to untangle this tricky, weird wordsmithing they're using to try to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. It's confusing. Okay. That was considered the object of matrimonial consent, and it meant non-contraceptive sexual relations. Okay. You cannot consent if you have to have non-contraceptive relations. That means no vasectomy. You can't consent to marriage with a vasectomy, but now you can because love wins. Okay. So they know that NFP messes all this stuff up. So if it had to be non-contraceptive, that means it has to be non-vasectomy. And if it's non-vasectomy, it can't be NFP either. But we have to have our NFP. Therefore, nature no longer needs to apply, and it doesn't have to be non-contraceptive anymore. Even if conception did, okay. However, the expression suitable in itself for the procreation of offspring. No, okay. Did I tell you in the beginning of this video that I'm going to show you where the status quo admits they have changed the definition of marriage? Yes, I did. And here it is. The 1983 Code, however, the expression suitable in itself for the procreation of offspring no longer qualifies. What was that? Did I hear something? No longer qualifies? The conjugal acts. Now, you used to be able to consummate your conjugal act. What goes up in consent must come down in consummation. The same thing you consent to gets consummated. The identical thing. This thing ain't changing no matter where I move it. Now, it no longer qualifies. We need to make this so much more. Nature doesn't change. Marriage doesn't change. But now we're saying, it does. And we don't even know what it's changing to because we can't define it. We're just going to make everyone do that. And hey, if someone wants out, I guess they want out. Who are we to judge? These guys are bad news. This is so evil what's going on right under our noses. All in the name of love, man. Okay, so suitable in itself. That means no admixture of love. Nothing. Just nature for the procreation of offspring no longer qualifies the conjugal acts. So I'm going slow on this, but we have to make sure we hammer it home. By which the right to the body is exercised for conjugal act when marriage is consummate. The choice of words is in this context, in this accord with canonical tradition, seems to require interpretation. Yeah. Performed while practicing some form of artificial birth control does not result in the consummation of marriage. Thus, despite the protestation of the Code Commission to the contrary, the revised code seems to have introduced a radical revision to the traditional understanding of the consummation of marriage. That is another way of saying we changed nature. Dr. Frankenstein. Ha, ha, ha. We have changed nature. We've created a new nature. Marriage is an office of nature. Procreation is natural, shared by all animals. The way you eat is the way you procreate. It's the same thing, same essence. But we have introduced a radical revision of the traditional understanding. No, you changed the legal definition of marriage, the legal object of consent. What you thought was a nail clipper is now an existential unitive nail clipper. You have to write a book called The Theology of the Toes and Toenails and how they are cut and what it actually signifies and how everyone feels when they're getting their toes cut, or it's actually not a true nail cutting, toe cutting experience if you don't feel truly deeply what's going on when those little toenails get cut off. What could go wrong? And you could get arrested if you don't cut your toenails just right. Oh, I'm reminded of something else. I got to get to it just a minute. Speaking of getting arrested if you don't do something just right, I was reading this recently in Crisis Magazine. So there's this joke. A man to his friend, why are you leaving the country? Friend, they've made homosexuality legal and I want to get out of here before they make it compulsory. See? So when these people start making this moral violence of love first, love wins, marriage, it's going to be compulsory. And if you don't get it right, you're out. So this is why there's pressure to get the annulment. And if you ask your priest, should I get it? They're going to say yes. Almost all of them, because there's pressure, just like you know, the homo thing now that you can't counsel against it and all. It's starting to push back a little bit. But point is that once evil starts getting mainstreamed, it becomes duty, it becomes obligation. And once you start saying marital debt is moral violence, now everything comes out against that. And you can't get, that's why guys are like, they're what do they call them? Passport bros. They get married to somebody from the Philippines because they don't have this problem over there. Did I write anything else? Yeah. Oh, this is kind of good. Divorce is always a grave offense against the natural law because you're cutting your own body in half. That's right. No reason, however grave. Okay. So yeah, Casti Kanubi says no reason, however grave, can make something morally okay. In accord with nature. If let me get it real straight just a minute. Okay, I found it. Casti Kanubi 54. Yeah. No reason, however grave, may be put forward by which anything intrinsically against nature may become conformable to nature and morally good. Exactly what Bishop Barron was saying. Doesn't matter your reason, how, I'm going to do something evil that good may come of it. No reason, however grave, if you're violating nature, okay? Divorce is always a grave offense against nature. What is exactly that grave offense? When you lay claim to the contract that is no longer yours because you manifestly consented to it permanently, okay, with someone else, you don't get to claim takebacks on that. You don't get to do moral violence to that contract. Okay? But again, okay, so I said it's just like cutting your own body in half. It's not natural for me to go, I'm going to, I don't know, remove a lung from myself. Oh, shoot. There's my buddy, John. Hang on, we got to talk to him for a second. Just a second. Okay, that was my buddy, John from Pennsylvania. I was telling him what I do is I get a lot of prayers done while I'm driving. There's so much on YouTube. Every novena, every kind of prayer you can think of, you can get it or download it or whatever, and you can get much done that way through Read Aloud app or just YouTube. So he drives a lot. I think it was good. But listen, so I'm drinking my coffee this morning after 4.5 hours sleep. And this morning from church, and I heard about the Strait of Hormuz getting the blockade and it because of extortion. And the analogy hit me. Okay, so let's listen to the little news clip and we'll go. Let's see what it says. Hang on, make sure. Okay, go.
A roughly 1,400 square mile area that you would have normal shipping routes going through. Now, Iran has said that's dangerous. There's mines in there in that hazardous area. You see it blocked with the red lines going across, forcing ships to go through the red area, which are these shipping routes that Iran is apparently charging tolls for. And the president
and those red areas are the Iranian territorial waters.
Correct. Those are the new shipping routes that Iran has forced ships to go through because you can't go through the normal passageway. That is the violation of the law of the sea.
All right, so we have international law, the law of the sea is talking about, like, look, you're supposed to be able to just cruise right on through, okay? But Iran is saying, no, you got to go through our deal, okay? So the law of nature is the Catholic Church needs to regulate these separations. But now the Catholic Church, through Bishop Barron, is saying, no, you must go through the civil forum. You got to go through civil, the red lines. You don't get to go through the natural where we make sure that nature is preserved, where we make sure that it's per divine law, your separation. We're going to force you to go through the state instead. And they're going to, this is an extortion. So therefore the people who do that no longer need to follow divine law when they do the separation, or that it's the innocent or the guilty spouse. You can extort, just like I said, do moral violence. This is how we do moral violence. We allow the extortion by saying the church, Bishop Barron is going, hey, just use the civil forum for your nice Catholic marriage separation. And one spouse can or does extort from the other that way because there's no guarantee of divine law being the innocent spouse getting the kids and everything. That's divine law. Divine law is innocent spouse gets everything. That's divine law. But now they're saying there's no fault, there's no innocence, there's no guilt. The extortioner wins. But listen, let's keep going.
Created by the United Nations Convention. And that is why President Trump is taking this step of blockading the ships. But what's fascinating is he says in his True Social, in capital letters, this is world extortion. Good.
So Trump this is what's kind of cool about Trump. I don't care if you have TDS or you don't think the annulment, the Iran war is good or bad, or that's like not the point of this conversation, what I'm saying. Trump is going, hey, I see some crazy going on here. This is world extortion. We need to do something different about it. And that's what's refreshing. He's like, everyone knows that it's like, if we just kind of beg Iran for something that it's nuts because these guys they're not interested in helping people out, really. They're kind of crazy, right? So similarly, it's not cool to play around with the state with your marriage. But what is our alternative? What else can we do? So when I heard that Trump was like, okay, we're going to, in a Trump kind of way, take matters into our own hands and we're going to say, we're going to blockade everything till we get this fixed. By the way, this is similar to what red pill people are doing. They're saying, we're going to blockade marriage till we get this fixed. You are going to make us go through no fault divorce court where extortion happens. No, we're going to just blockade all of marriage. So Does President Trump think a permanent block of the Strait of Hormuz is the solution? No. But it is a method to get something done. So these red pill guys are like, we're going to permanently block marriage. Is that an ultimate solution? No. But they're trying to do something to fix it. But it's kind of dorky what they're doing, but at least they're trying something. The point is that what we want is to, if we can figure out a lawsuit or something to get the attention of Bishop Barron so he stops forcing people into the marriage extortion trade route here and lets them go through the separation courts instead, that's what we have to do. But until then, like I say, you've got to blockade marriage yourself. You and your potential spouse have got to figure out that what's going on here is the bad guys, Bishop Barron, is in charge of sending everybody through the exploitation, anti-family, anti-nature route of death. And the correct route is full of minds now. They don't, you want to go, speaking of, you want to go to your annulment, you want to go to your tribunal and say, I want a separation trial because we need to separate because of this and this and this. You say, I'm sorry, we can't do that. No one has done that for a long time. It's full of minds. There's no way to get your separation court anymore. We don't do that. So this is what Iran has done. They've just totally put mines all over the place in the normal, natural way people would go through. So you can't do that anymore until you fix it. So until we fix the mines, everyone has to go through this bad red zone of exploitation and extortion. And President Trump's like, no to all of it till we got to fix the right thing. So what I'm saying is if you're going to get married, you got to say no to all of it until it gets fixed. And if it's not going to get fixed, you have to make sure that you're not going to even go there. You don't need to get this oil. You don't need to get through there. You make sure that everybody knows that they go to hell if they try. All these separation things, most of this stuff wouldn't be needed if they know there's no way out anyway. Okay. It's kind of like if you know the power's out, you're going to come up with some solution for something. If you know you can't get an annulment and a divorce, you're going to come up with a solution. So all this marriage counseling and all these annulments and all this separations basically wouldn't happen if people realized there was no way out. They would figure it out rather than figure out a way to get out. Let me see what else we got on this.
And that's exactly the point that he's making. No country can take a international shipping route, take it hostage, attempt to, and redirect ships through their waterways, which is Iranian, close to shore is Iranian waterways, right? And charge a toll. And this is, I would say once this blockade begins, the end, even short-term result is going to be a abject failure on Iran's part to attempt to take this strait hostage. We had earlier this morning.
All right, I guess the analogy thing kind of limps. It's a little bit difficult, but I think that was the main point. That it's really good that he's changing the advantage of the whole thing, and I kind of like it because it's not a status quo thing. So we have to stop thinking status quo. We just have to get more Janet Smith and more love and all that stuff into the picture so that we can have better marriages. The solution is better marriage prep. That's what Bishop Barron always says. Solution is better marriage prep. Wrong. Just like the solution is just pay more tolls or for the fee. No. The solution is freedom through the Hormuz Strait, and the solution is defining the marriage contract via nature instead of this new stuff, which can never work. The canonical status quo, the people with the green Bible out there, they're saying since this revision seems to have been unintended and has not been followed in the practice of the Holy See, which I disagree with. It seems like they have practiced it. They're saying everything has to be in a human manner. Canon 1061 should be amended so that the mind of the legislator is expressed clearly in language consonant with the canonical tradition. That all sounds good. They're saying, it's like Joe Biden saying, we need to keep the southern border really secure. And it's very secure. It's so secure, He's saying all this stuff. They're doing all this Catholic lip service. They're saying all this patriotism, secure the border. Meanwhile, they're like, death to America, let open borders, okay? So they're saying, look, when Canon 1061 says the conjugal act must be in a human manner, nobody knows what that is, Pope. So could you please express this in a clear language consonant with canonical tradition? Could you please do that? Actually, they don't even want him to do that because it can't be done, and they go ahead anyway. And it's before the new code even started. Once 1965 hit, off to the races. It was called love covenant, man. I mean, love contract. So, since this revision, this radical revision, since this revision seems to have been unintended. Oh, really? You think it was unintended and has not been followed in the practice of the whole? What are you talking about? They intended it, and it's been totally followed. If you say, I don't want in a human manner the way they're like perpetual consent, they're like, no. Marital debt is out. Unity is in. Unity means if there's any disagreement, no one's in charge. And if you say someone's in charge, your marriage is invalid. Okay, so there's that. Now, extortioner. This is the Bible verse I've said before, 1 Corinthians 5:11. If someone's an extortioner, with such a one, not so much as to eat, let alone go to their wedding, okay? Go to their new wedding. They're an extortioner. They have to solve the extortion first. This is why we shouldn't participate in the extortion, which is what you do when you go to the annulment wedding. If somebody got the divorce and then they're getting the annulment, divorce is extortion. It is a ticket to hell. You can't go to communion if you divorce. You are denied sacraments if you divorce. This is all what it's supposed to be. But again, if we no longer define things, who is to judge? So Bishop Barron is he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, whether he knows it or not. Maybe I will write to him. I don't know. So here, Third Council of Baltimore, Decree number 126. We command that all baptized persons, they must not go to the civil courts to obtain separation from bed and board without previously receiving permission from the ecclesiastical authority. Should anyone attempt to do this, let him know that he incurs the guilt of grave sin and that he is to be punished as the bishop shall decide. This law is divine law. It's universal law. It's still in existence. It's in effect in the USA. It's not necessary. It's already implicit. It's already, the Holy See has already said as much, but each synod, each country can do their own thing and re-up it if they want, or, you know what I mean? Like say it more about it. So that's all this is. This is what my wife's guilty of. And she went to civil court. She did not get permission to do so. She has incurred the guilt of grave sin. Now, if you go to this new wedding of hers, end of May, you are saying she did not incur the guilt of grave sin. That's what your presence is saying. So you are giving it, you're perpetuating the scandal. You didn't know that, but I'm telling you now, that's what this is. This law has not been abrogated. I can prove that if you want. I'll do so in the comments. No problem proving that. Even the punishment thing has not been abrogated. Nope. Okay, here's a link you can click. It's going to be in the show notes, how annulment seals your fate. Like I said, once you go down the rabbit hole, the Alice in Wonderland of annulment, it's really hard to get back. Really hard. Just like they lay out the red carpet for you want to be a narcissist, we'll give you entitlement. You can extort. You can take, we're going to call it not moral violence, but moral virtue for you to do the strong, independent thing and kill your family and then go get a new spouse. Once you do that, it's really, really hard to get out of it. So this is why we don't want to encourage people by going to their wedding, okay? Playing nice with this stuff. It's not just about, well, they got an annulment, it's all legal. No. Again, the legal axiom, if you kill your spouse, you can't go get they will not let you get married because violates the Bible. You've done an evil so that good may come of it. Well, how about if you use the state to kill your family? It's the same thing, but they're no longer suggesting that it's actually doing anything, because nature, it's independent of nature. It's all significance in sign now. All right. Why do I have Luke 23 on here? Oh, I was going to tell you about my new kind of revelation. I got to find the video just a minute. Okay, but before I talk about Mary, let's look at the appointments of the ITC, the International Theological Commission. This is like synodality 101, where that got started. We're going to bring in the experts to help us with our Catholic faith, says the Pope and everybody. Okay, look at some of the, here's Father von Urs, Hans Urs von Balthasar. You guys know about him, right? Yep. Yves Congar, Henry de Lubac, Karl Rahner, Joseph Ratzinger, he's on there too. And some of you smarty pants people probably know some of these people too. So this is in 1969, the creation of this ITC. Oh, darn, there's my phone. Hang on. Okay, enough of that. But I was watching the Passion of the Christ movie Saturday night. I try to watch that every Lent, but I don't always get to. But this one was good, and I watched it, and something new occurred to me, and it's been something I'm thinking about for a long time. So I wanted to share it because I thought it was important. Luke 2:33, and his father and mother were wondering at those things that were spoken concerning him. And Simeon blessed them and said to his mother, Mary, his mother, behold, this child is set for the fall and resurrection of many in Israel. This is Simeon, I think, saying this, right? Yeah. And for a sign which shall be contradicted, and thy own soul a sword shall pierce, that out of many hearts thoughts may be revealed. Okay, so watch this video. Out of Mary is totally up for that. Yeah, out of many hearts thoughts may be revealed. So she is putting herself out there. She is so sympathetic and wants to help us, especially those who are the victims of injustice, or those who feel really, I don't know, they're very secretive or trapped in their sins, or they can't trust anyone with their wounds or something. Mary says, you can trust me because I am highly motivated to pursue justice or help out the victimized. Highly motivated, because if you watch that movie, it shows it's like her heart was pierced with a sword over this. So the Bible is letting us know that Mary is the person to go to when you have trouble, when you're not sure who's going to listen to you or what you can do about it. She is beyond motivated because her hands were tied while her own son got crucified, and she was right there. So this is why that when I saw that clip, when Mary is looking, just the camera pulls back and Mary's looking, it's like, that's it. Out of many hearts, thoughts may be revealed, because a lot of people have hearts with thoughts that are not revealed, or they keep them to themselves, or they're not, they put on their fake self, right? You hear about this? It's like, and that's kind of what you hear about the narcissist. They're like, that's their fake self. No, all this, everyone should reject, of course, all this. Everyone's a permanent narcissist, or those people can't change. They typically don't, unless the pain gets high enough and they have a place to go with it. So that's, I think, what this means. Your own soul a sword shall pierce, that everyone who's hurt will be motivated to bring their hurt to you, because you're one of them. You're a person just like them, and you suffered so much. So obviously Christ is like that, but Mary is one step removed. She's just a creature, and she is extremely sympathetic because of what's happened to her. So that was my happy Easter note. Okay. I don't know about you. I've gained a few pounds, but whatever. There's always, St. Michael's Lent is coming up this summer. We'll fight back. Anyway, thanks for watching. I got one video I want to show you. Just leave it. It kind of puts the taste in your mouth about why people are sort of down on marriage and why they want to get out of their situation. And if given a chance, they will. Anyway, if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay toxic, and don't go to these annulment weddings, because you are perpetuating and helping others stay in their sin. Peace out.